sacred text, twisted views. Time to separate lies from truth. Not here to burn, but here to see what survives when the mind breaks free. Deconstruct, analyze, open hearts, open eyes. If it falls, let it be. What remains is meant to be. Cyber deconstruction, let's get real. Faith when challenge starts to peel. If it's built on solid ground, why is it scared to stick around? Not for hate, but for the wise. Truth won't shatter, only lies. Time to start the conversation. Now ain't the time to pretend nothing happened.
Hello, everybody. How is everybody doing today? Thank you for the Ghost Raid, Ghost of Christian Past. Oh, excuse me. If you're not following Ghost of Christian Past, who I'm going to be bringing up here in just a moment, make sure you're giving her a follow. I don't think she's on YouTube right now. But make sure you are following her. I'm waiting for my multi-guest to open up. There we go. So we'll get Ghost and Hanji both brought up.
Oh, hey. And I am on
Hello.
YouTube.
Oh, you are? And what's your
Yes,
name on
it's
YouTube?
in my profile, Ghost of
And I-
Christian Past.
And I'm following you on YouTube now that I think about it.
Yes. I follow you on YouTube.
You do. But yeah, so earlier today we got hit with a violation. Luckily, when I went to go look at my things to see about whether or not I needed to fight it or not to appeal it, TikTok didn't log it in. So I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's nice.
I think they started giving up.
Well, it is the case. So I think Hanji, were you here when that guy started dropping the
Didn't
slurs?
even know you were live.
Oh, okay, that's fair. Yeah, so I brought a guy up. I should have known because I brought him up yesterday. And when he came up, he just immediately started slurring. And I just didn't recognize the name. Because last night he didn't have his camera on. So unfortunately now I'm going to be wary of certain names. But while I was talking, he dropped a slur and I didn't catch it. And luckily chat caught it. And so they let me know, so I dropped him immediately. Because I was like, wait a minute, did you just drop the N slur? And he just started dropping the N slur, the K slur. Like, he did not care.
Damn.
Not
Yeah,
surprised.
it's like some people are just, POS FFs.
Yeah, dude, I had somebody come up, like, just immediately start dropping slurs the other day. Just
Yeah.
no conversation, just the first things out of his mouth were N-word, C-word, K, like, all of it. It's just yucky.
I just lack
is.
self-control these days.
Yeah.
They do, and it's weird. But while we are here and getting set up and waiting for people to come on in, Ghost, do you want to chat a little bit about yourself? Because we've got the YouTube going and all that. So do you want to let chat know about yourself and know a little bit about your platform?
Sure. So I try to create a deconstruction community where any of us wherever we are on our journey, whatever we want to call it, can come and have conversation, just be friends, you know. I think that's one of the things that I miss from church the most, is just having people to talk to about different things that come up in life and whatever. But we run sword drills over on my page. I don't know, like, what is there to say about me? I'm not that cool, honestly. I just do this because it's fun.
Hold on. I only allow, except for Christians, but I only allow cool people on my panel. So if you made it to the panel, you're cool.
Cool beans.
All right,
Yeah.
all right, fair, fine.
And Fen, thank you so much for the galaxy. I super appreciate it. Bad Religion, thank you for the 10 team bracelets. I appreciate it. Spicy Phoenix, thank you for all the gifts. And Bad Religion is just going crazy with the I'm so hungry gifts. Thank you so much. It means so much to me. So we've got another guest wanting to come up. Hanji, are you able to bring up this guest?
Yep. I don't know why my mic wasn't working. Yeah, I got it. Cypress, did you mean to come up?
Kinda, but not really. But I'm here now. So what's going on?
Do you have anything on the topic, darling?
I mean, I already know that God is the Christian. Yeah, got it. Is a sick. You know what I'm saying? I'm atheist. It's whatever.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and drop you down so we can get opposition
Yeah,
up here.
no, I got you.
Thank you, Cypress.
That's our
It is
hidden.
a cool new background.
It is. It is. I do want to. What I eventually want to do is put like a bunch of monster cans in here to look like,
Solid
you
plan.
know.
Mm-hmm.
You and your monster cats.
And we did earlier today on Night's Live. I don't know if Knight's going to be in here tonight, but on Night's Live earlier, we did get somebody take on the Monster Can Cap Removal Prayer Challenge. And,
Did you really?
Yeah, and turns out that prayer still does not remove monster cans or lids.
Unfortunate. It would make the opening of them so much easier.
It would be, and it also showed that Jesus isn't a liar.
Right?
Turns out that Jesus is a liar.
Whatever you
fraud.
say in my name will be given to you. Apparently not.
Yeah, apparently not. And it's goofy, like, I don't know why. So let's give some shout outs real quick. Fen is in here. We have Bad Religion. Miss Michelle is in here. We have the one and only Spicy Phoenix. Ghost of Christian Pass is here. Mina Renee. We got Buddy C. We got Biblical Bukkake, which is funny. That's hilarious. Because it's Boo, B-O-O. We have the one and only Hanji, the Spartan Terror. We've got Joe is in here. We've got Decon Cam. Algo is in here. We have Everlasting Godstopper. And as far as those that are normally in here, they are all here. So yeah, let's get on with some debates. Christians, we genuinely want to know, why is the Christian God a sick monster? I gotta watch my language for the first 20 minutes. If you are on YouTube and you want to come up and debate, go ahead and click the link. It is going to be tinyurl.com/cd-guest. Give that a click. We can bring you up. Unfortunately, if you do come in that way, Hanji and Ghost will not be able to hear you. And then, as a matter of fact, while I am thinking about it, I am going to bring up another profile for people to follow. But let me get switched over to this. because it has finally been announced. I'm going to hit this with the guess and get that in requests. We're going to accept it. I'm going to hit join. Then mute my mic over there. So right here is Reason and Rebellion. Reason and Rebellion is a podcast that's going to happen every Thursday. It's going to replace my Thursday podcast with Jaron and I. And it's going to be Thursday night, Jaron and I, and we'll be doing debates with other people. It'll still be broadcast on both TikTok and YouTube. However, on that one, because of the nature of Video Ninja, we will only be accepting guests over Video Ninja. And that one's going to be set up a little bit different. You're going to have two boxes right here that's going to have me and Jaron in them. And right below us is going to be the person that we're debating, if they so choose to turn their camera on. And with this, we're going to be debating everything from true atheism, where we actually sit as far as our religious views. We're going to be going over deconstructing other things, whether it's deconstructing misogyny, deconstructing racism. And so we're just going to be talking about a bunch of different things. The main focus will still be religious, but we're going to be talking about a lot of other things. On this panel here, there's in the case like of say Hanji and a few other theists, I give a little grace for on this panel, because Hanji, as far as the deconstruction community is concerned, has been supportive of each and every one of us. But on this panel, Jaron and I want to be able to be more open with some of these things. And Jaron, where Christ Before Jesus is more geared towards his book, it doesn't tackle theology itself, it tackles historicity. It also allows Jaron to be more open about his own personal beliefs as well. And so yeah, so so that's that. Give that a follow. Again, every Thursday we'll be doing that. And I think we're going to introduce a drink of the night. We're going to have a drink of the night that Jaron and I will be sipping on.
Oh, I love that.
Because turns out that drinking on live is perfectly okay. TikTok doesn't care about that. The only rule is you can't be promoting like drinking games or anything like that. That's not allowed. Oh, I forgot I'm on the panel, so I gotta, so let me go open this up, because I forgot I'm like over there trying to look at YouTube, and then I'm like, I can't see my YouTube thing, and then I'm like, oh yeah, it's because I have my backup on, and when I have my backup on, I can't read the chat from YouTube, because if I keep the thing closed too much, it'll boot me out. So let's see what we got going on over on the YouTubes. Jacob Rogers, they should ban this guy. No, they're not going to ban me, but you come up and debate me. I'd love to have your debate. And Jen is absolutely right. Using all caps will get you muted. All caps is only for mods to try to get a hold of me or to try to get a hold of each other. Let's see. Somebody else said, people like you are why the Democrats lost. That's goofy. We don't know all the animals in the ocean, but claim God doesn't exist. Testing, hop on up. I would love to chat with you. Love to have a debate with you. We can definitely talk about why I believe God didn't exist. I'd love to have that discussion with you. I think I have a pretty banging argument for it. But you'll need to come up and hop in the box and we can talk about it. Hanji, do you want to bring up one of the guests that's in the box?
But Nick, can we have your age for TikTok TOS, please?
Yeah, I'm 20.
Okay, thank you. And are you a Christian or believer in the God of the Christian Bible?
Don't kick me, but I'm not. But what I am saying is, at this story of Jesus,
I launched it.
died,
What did
resurrected.
you
Oh,
say?
sorry,
I thought you liked that pig.
Unalive, resurrected.
All right, so please only come up if you're actually up here to debate. If you are an atheist, don't come in the box. This is only for debates. Is there another guest in there?
I believe it is. Nope, no one yet.
Ah. Man, I saw that there were 2 in there. I was excited. Booted him out, hoping to get an atheist, or not an atheist, a theist, man, Freudian slips, hoping to get a theist up here to debate. Ghost, have you had much luck with God sending his A-team?
Not really. Especially not tonight. That's for sure.
I don't know what it is, but everyone has been super, super slow with theists.
Well, it's because I think they realize that they just can't win. They don't have good arguments. They have piss poor arguments, and then when they come up here and they watch their arguments get absolutely destroyed. How you doing, Knight? If you're not following Knight, give Knight a follow. And then Knight, if you want to hop over to YouTube when you get a chance, so you can get some follows over there too, feel free. But yeah, it is the case that like I almost want to use like horrible arguments myself, because I feel like, because there's times when I'll use like a really strong argument and I feel like that it was the guest that's also sitting in there, it was the argument that they were going to use, and I just tear it apart and I see the other person just drop out. I'm like, wait a minute, come back. Maybe you have better points than that last guy.
Come back.
Come back. I'll use weaker arguments. I'll say, look at the trees. That's how I know naturalism's true. Look at the trees.
The Big Bang is obviously real. Just look at the trees.
Yeah, I'll quit saying explain cancer. I won't use that argument again, I promise. But yeah, over on YouTube, if you do want to come on up, the link is tinyurl.com/cd-guest. Hop on in. Love to chat with you. Love to have a debate. Again, like I said, we haven't heard any good arguments. Not a single one. He's looking for someone inexperienced. Patrick, hop on up. If you think you're experienced, hop on up. Debate me. I'm not looking for people that are unexperienced. I'll debate anybody. Heck, if you know Wes Huff, I want to debate Wes Huff. Somebody get Wes Huff up here. I'll debate Wes Huff.
Who's Wes Huff?
You don't know who Wes Huff is?
Yeah, what?
Oh. So Wes Huff is a doctorate student who beat Billy Carson. Billy Carson is this like conspiracy theorist who believes in the Emerald Tablets and some other things. Wes Huff beat him in a debate, but if you can't beat Billy Carson in a debate, like, just go lay down and just sleep forever, or go to work and just stay at work forever. Like, why are you trying to debate? But ever since then, it launched him into like being popular, being famous amongst Christians. But so he's been on like the Joe Rogan Experience and on all these other podcasts. He's been doing his own video releases, and he gets things just wildly inaccurate. On the Joe Rogan Experience, he made the claim that the Great Isaiah Scroll is word for word accurate to the Masoretic text, which is incorrect. It's inaccurate. It's not right. It's wrong. It is about 95% accurate. That's true, but it's not word for word accurate. And then he went to put out, because a bunch of people made videos about it, so he put out like a thing attempting to apologize, but he didn't actually apologize. He just made him an excuse for why he made the mistake. And then his most recent criticism that he is getting is, so as you know, Mark has two endings. Mark has the short ending that ends in in verse 8, and then it has 9 through 20 as the extended ending. And there is a guy, I can't remember the guy's name, but he did some work on this, because he was like, well, the space that's left on Codex Sinaiticus, it looks like there's enough space where 9 through 20 could have fit. But the only way he could actually get it to fit is, as he went through the rest of Mark, he had to find the smallest Greek letters, and even then he had to compress them to get them to fit. So they had to compress in a way that whoever wrote Mark didn't write them, to make them fit. And Wes Huff didn't know this. Wes Huff didn't do the research into this, and Wes Huff used this guy's source and said, see, look, the intention was to put the extended ending of Mark in. And it's like, no, the guy whose work you're using even stated, this only worked when I found the smallest letters that Mark, whoever wrote Mark, that they used, and even then I had to compress them to get them to fit, so they wouldn't have fitted. They didn't fit. So Wes Huff is just an idiot. If you know Wes Huff, bring him up and I'll debate him. I want to debate him. I want to absolutely smash him. I want to snap his ankles so he never debates again.
I'm looking on his website right now, and this is wild, actually.
Yeah.
I love how his logo is just a shield with a cross on it.
Yep. And if you pay attention, his website makes it sound like there's a bunch of like it's an organization, like there's other people that are involved in it. And when you go to like book an appearance, it's only him. And if
I want
you
to
go
see this. I want to see you debate him. And I haven't even heard him.
Yeah, and if you read, there's a comment there where he refers to himself as the Indiana Jones of the Bible. And he misspells, and there's a misspelling in there. And the guy's not even, the guy hasn't even, he's not a doctor yet. He's working on his doctorate. He's working, so he doesn't have it yet. And the thing that's the big plunder with Mark, the reason why his issue with Mark is such a big deal is because that's what his doctorate degree is on, is manuscript, or is textual analysis, manuscript analysis. That's what his degree is on. And so with that being his degree, if I was one of his professors and I saw his video with him trying to loop in the extended end into Mark, I'd be like, hey, you gotta fight to stay in the program now. Like,
I don't know if we can have you here.
Yeah, like you making Jesus look bad. Like, stop it. And not only that, but he had, I'll go look it up. If Blake is over on the YouTube, he can write it in. But there is see if we can find this, because his story that he gives, and you'll hear a lot of people mention it. Let me see if I can find this. Okay,
Yeah,
here we go.
Everyone might be sleeping.
They might be. So yeah, what he had was see if we can find this. So yeah, so the reason why he is like a big of an apologist as he is because he talks about how he had this neurological disorder, and then he was miraculously healed of it. And with this neurological disorder, it caused him to be paralyzed in his legs. So from the legs down, waist down, he was paralyzed, and then suddenly he was healed of it. He received a blessing, and within a little bit of time, he was healed. But when you listen to him, so he'll never go into detail about what it is. Anytime anybody asks him what it was, he diverts and he runs away from it quickly. But when you actually look up what his symptoms are, he had, and other doctors have even mentioned this, it was probably transverse myelitis is what he had, which is caused by when you go into puberty. Puberty causes swelling in certain parts of your body, to include in your spinal cord. And in some people, not everybody obviously, but in some people, the swelling causes certain nerves to get pinched in such a way that it causes you to be paralyzed. So these people end up being paralyzed from, depending on which nerves are pierced, until they're done with puberty. Once they're done with puberty and these things start to shrink, they're able to walk again. So this is what he had. He won't admit it. It's not a miraculous healing. Like, the guy is just a grifter.
Gotta love that.
Mm-hmm. But so if you ever hear people, and they'll usually tell his story, they won't drop his name because they've just heard it somewhere. But yeah.
Hey, Bayou.
Somebody's saying, "Quiet down, you're gonna wake your mom." I own my own place. Like, you're goofy. I actually have for those who don't know, I have a full-time job. I don't live with my parents. Like, you're goofy. We got Mario Vasquez. Everybody report this channel so he can be blocked. No, I sincerely, we sincerely believe that it is the case that God is a sick fuck. We can ground this in a wide variety of things. Ghost, why are some of the reasons we think God is a sick fuck?
Oh, let's see. He condones and participates in things like grape, slavery, schmurder, schmenicide, misogyny, ashmortion.
Mm-hmm. He's okay with cannibalism. He's okay with
Cannibalism
human
is a
sacrifice.
good one.
He's okay with human sacrifice. He is perfectly okay with racism. Jesus himself is racist a number of times. He's okay with having children being mauled by bears. He's okay with forcing a virgin who is graped to stay with her grapist. He's okay with executing innocent children. In fact, he's even okay to make bets with Lucifer and winning those bets by allowing Lucifer to unalive a sinless man's entire family. Like, this god's a monster. He's ridiculous. He's disgusting. He's a POSFF, a piece of shit fuckface.
POSFF.
All right, we're going to go ahead real quick, and I'm going to drop down with Reason and Rebellion just so I can actually have a big screen to watch my YouTube chat.
Fair.
No, Ghost, we discussed the abortion in your live. Like, if it is the case that we are supposed to emulate Jesus, if we need to emulate Jesus, he's the role model, and Jesus is God, and it is the case that God created the female anatomy in such a way that it aborts spontaneously more fetuses than the human race could electively choose to do, that means God doesn't care about children at all, and that God is, in fact, pro-abortion. So I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be pro-abortion. We should definitely be pro-choice.
Agree. It's just the way God designed it.
It is. Now, over on YouTube, it is the case that we do have 312 people watching this on YouTube right now. Oh, we do have somebody, so we're gonna get this person in real fast. I didn't see him till now, so we're gonna go ahead and get Corey brought up.
Can you hear me?
How you doing, Corey?
I'm doing great. I came up with the debate a couple of things. You hear me
Hold
good?
on one moment. Yeah, I can hear you. I just gotta do some muting real quick. So that there's not an echo for the TikTok. All right.
Oh, I'm 19.
And how old are you?
I'm coming from YouTube. I'm 19. I'm coming from YouTube. The YouTube chat.
Okay.
You hear me?
AZ Mike, did we get the echo fixed? I just need to know if we got that echo fixed real quick.
All right.
We
take your
don't
time.
have him at all. We can't hear him. At least
Yeah, I
on
know
the
you
panel.
can't. Yeah, Hanji, I know you
Oh,
guys
okay.
can't on the panel. Okay, the echo is fixed. All right, and so what is your strongest?
Alright.
So I believe God is a sick fuck. Why? Can you explain why God is not a sick fuck?
Honestly, I don't got nothing to say. I'm just saying you're an atheist. Is that right? You're atheist. If I'm hearing correctly.
Yeah, I'm an atheist. Yeah.
All right. I was making sure it wasn't about the God is a sick being. It wasn't about that part. It was the atheism part. Me, I don't believe in the Christian God. I am what they call as agnostic. Agnostic. Believing there is a higher power through logic, but you can't technically prove until past. If that makes sense. I'm agnostic.
Oh, I can give you a syllogism. I can give you a syllogism why there can't be a creator.
Go on. Go on.
Yeah, so premise one, do you know how syllogisms work?
No, I don't.
Okay,
Sadly.
so my conclusion is that God doesn't exist. So that's going to be my conclusion. So I'm going to give you an argument for this. So I'm going to give you premise one, premise two. I'm going to give you a list of premises. I'm going to give you 3 of them. So you can disagree with the premises, but you can't disagree with the conclusion. Because if the premises go through, then the conclusion follows. So premise one
May
is...
I say something real quick, please?
Yeah.
All right, let me give you a reason real quick. This is my only legitimate reason I got. You know how like the universe is perfectly balanced by gravity and the fields? You know about that stuff, right?
Wait, say that one more time.
You know how like the planets in the solar system is technically the perfect right gravity? If it was lower, it would float away. If it was higher, it will collide. My point
that's incorrect. Do you know how gravity works?
Who doesn't, man? I am not pretending.
So gravity works with mass attracting mass, and it is the case that through like stardust and other things, we're constantly getting mass added. Like there's mass constantly being added to the Earth and mass taken away from the Earth. And so with mass attracting mass, like the gravitational with the Earth is constantly changing. It's not like a solid number. It's constantly changing, right? So that just disproves that right away.
Which, yes, that technically does. But this is the reason I have. How can the universe be perfectly balanced without chaos causing if there's not a legitimate creator? It can't be legitimate love. If you get what I'm saying.
You just have to prove that it could be any other way.
Yeah,
but it's not
can we technically
balanced.
prove?
Well, that's the point. Well, hold on, but that's the point is it's not perfectly balanced, right? Our orbit is elliptical, so the reason why we have like summers is one, not only because the Earth is tilted, but because there are time periods when we're closer to the sun. There's times when we're further away from the sun. So
that's true.
So this is all like a nice argument that theists will use, but it's just not true. Like gravity on Earth is we have mass being gained to the Earth, mass being lost constantly. The Earth's orbit around the sun is elliptical. It just doesn't stand up to scrutiny.
I see. I see,
All right,
man.
but hey, I'm gonna go ahead and move on. I've got some.
All right, that's
I've
what
got
I
some
like
other
about
people.
you. Don't give up, man. Keep on going. Don't give up, man. Keep staying.
Well, that was goofy. Hanji, can you bring up the next guest on TikTok? And I'll turn your guys' audios back on.
Well, thank you for the gifts, whoever gifted me.
Go ahead and drop him.
How dare
Oh.
you?
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead and drop him. He doesn't actually talk. All he does is make funny noises. That's all he does.
Yeah,
weird.
he was just on my live earlier.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, it was
Dugald,
weird.
oh, thank you for the gift. I missed it. I'm sorry. Thank you.
All right.
Oh, they cannot hear
All
us.
Black Crusader, how are you doing today? Oh, how are you doing today, All Black Crusader?
I'm doing good. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. And real quick, if you're not following Dugald, make sure you give Dugald a follow. Can I get your age real quick?
Age is 31.
All right, and are you a Christian?
I am a Christian.
Okay, question is, why is your God a sick monster?
He's not a sick monster. You people are like you're perverts. Like, look at everything you're talking about.
Yeah, so why is your God okay with slavery?
He's not okay with slavery. Evil people are okay with slavery.
Oh, God
Like,
commands
is
it. Have
that
you
like
not read your
are
scriptures?
like you atheists like are slow or something?
Well, have you not read Deuteronomy?
Yeah, that's talking about something else. Like, if you pay somebody off, you owe with work. That's not.
Oh,
like
we'll go
slavery.
read that. Hold on. We'll go read it, and I'll show you why you're wrong.
Show me how I'm wrong. Go ahead.
Yeah, we will. Let me get my
And by the way,
browser
before you
brought
read
up.
this, I just want to say this one thing. The people that run this country, the New World Order, all those people, they're Satanists. Like, they have all the science and all the information, and they believe in Satan. And you think God isn't real? How does that make sense?
Oh yeah, because he's okay with slavery, and all loving God wouldn't be okay with slavery. So where we're going to go is in Leviticus. We're going to go to Leviticus, and we're going to start in 39. So again, when we're talking about Leviticus, we're talking about, in verse 25, when your kin falls into difficulty, it's talking about the Israelites. And so it says, if any who are dependent on you, meaning the Israelites, become so impoverished that they sell themselves to you, you shall not make them serve as slaves. They shall remain with you as hired or bound laborers. They shall serve with you until the year of the Jubilee. Then they and their children with them shall go out from your authority. They shall go back to their own family and return their ancestral property. For they are my servants whom I brought out of the land of Egypt, which is how we know it's talking about the Israelites. They shall not be sold as slaves are sold. You shall not rule over them with harshness, but you shall fear your God. As for the male and female slaves whom you may have, it is from the nations around you that you may acquire male and female slaves. You may acquire them from among the aliens residing with you and from their families who are with you, who have been born in your land. They may be your property. You may keep them as possession for your children after you, for them to inherit as property. These you may treat as slaves. So again, what we'll learn here is that the Israelites are not to be treated as slaves. The people of other nations are to be treated as slaves. We learn that the
You
Israelites,
mean the Gentiles?
they go.
The Gentiles, right?
Wait, say what?
The Gentiles. The Gentiles, right?
Yeah, the Gentiles. Yeah, that's right. The Gentiles can be slaves forever.
Well, yes. If you know about the New Testament, you know none of that is valid anymore.
Oh, can you find me any verse in the New Testament where slavery is ended? Go find me any verse
new
where God
covenant.
says.
It should be obvious. Isn't it obvious to a smart, intelligent atheist?
Oh,
Cyber, I don't know if you can hear me, but
I thought that was
Dugald hit
obvious
your
to you
goal.
people
You need
because,
to
like,
reset a new one,
y'all say
please.
stuff in the Old Testament, or like you say story that where somebody was raped. Like, let's say if I said a story about somebody being raped, does that mean that I condone rape?
Oh, I can go find. Do you want me to go find stories in the
Yeah, I know there's stories, but does
New
that mean
Testament?
that he condones rape?
No. I'm
That's what
talking
I'm
about in the
asking
New
you. Do you
Testament,
think
my dude. Hey, little bro. I'm talking about in the New Testament. Do you want me to go find these stories in the New Testament?
what are you gonna say, Mary?
No, I'm not going to say Mary. But I do
Go
think
ahead. I'd
it's
be
kind of
surprised if you tell me a story where Jesus Christ condones rape, because all of this is atheist, like trying to go around like y'all playing this little game, and you know that Christ isn't with none of that. He doesn't condone
listen to
playing
him
with
getting
children.
unhinged.
This isn't
Look at
the
him crashing out.
Islamic God. This is the Christian
Look at
God.
him. Look at him crashing out. Yeah, so do you want me to I can yeah, so where we'll
Go
go
ahead, the
find
rape
in
story.
the
Go ahead.
New
I want to see,
Testament.
because I don't see anywhere where they condone rape in the Bible. That's just you trying to like, oh, God's pro-abortion. Yeah, right. That's why his conservatives are against it. Like, you got to
Oh,
see
the
the
only
people.
hold on.
Do.
Listen. You're about to get a mute. You're about
Follow
to
the
get a
people,
mute.
the Christians.
Look, you're
Or
about to
what
get
are
a
we
mute.
okay with?
Look at that. See, now you got yourself a mute. And the nice thing about VDO, they can't unmute themselves. They have to wait for me to do it. So look, the only things that are going to get you muted on my live is one, if you keep over talking me, or two is you don't answer the questions and you try to divert away from it. So I don't need to show where like God is okay with grape. I don't need to show that. All I need to show is where Jesus supports the Old Testament. If Jesus is supporting the Old Testament, then that suffices. So first thing that we will go look at is we'll go look at Matthew chapter 5, if I can learn to spell Matthew. So we'll go look at the Sermon on the Mount. So on the Sermon on the Mount, and we will get this brought up again on my big screens. So what we're going to read here with the Sermon on the Mount is where Jesus says, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have come not to abolish, but to fulfill. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, not one letter, not one stroke of a letter will pass from the law until all is accomplished." Now, when he says until all is accomplished, what is that? He told us heaven and earth passing away. It's why I have it highlighted. Therefore, whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. So this explicitly shows that Jesus is fully okay with the old law.
Can I respond?
Yeah, you can respond.
Well, I see what the game you're trying to play here. You're trying to connect the New Testament with the Old Testament. I'll say it's a nice ploy, but look, I'll just lay.
Is that
out
not
my
what Jesus
last
said?
argument
Are those
because
not Jesus's words?
yeah, they're his words. Let me just lay out my
Okay.
last argument before you go to the next person. I just want to say this last thing because we all know this. Even the dumbass leftists, they know that.
Listen, buddy, I'm in charge now. Unfortunately, I can't friend you into scrap metals for doctor's orders. So how about instead you just shut up and do your jobs?
We kicked that pug to the sky. Hanji, is there anybody else in the box?
Let me see. Can you hear me? Because chat was saying they couldn't hear me or Ghost.
Yeah, they can't hear you. They can't hear you. They can hear me, but they can't hear you. But I can hear you.
Okay. No, not on this side.
All right. I got more people in here. I do want to read this super chat real quick. Gotta go find it really fast. So this is from Mo for $4.99. God in the Bible is indeed a sick and cruel SOB. Take my money. You deserve it for having to deal with this comment section. Mo, thank you so much. I truly appreciate that. Thank you so much for that $4.99 super chat. And if you do want to support me, the best way to do that with super chats, any and all super chats, any and all Cash Apps and Venmos will be read in between chats, in between debates, and these are all the best way to support me, and it means so much to me when we do this. Let me get my Venmo open real quick as well. And the access to those are all within my thing. And hold on, I gotta take a look at. So yeah, anyways, so thank you for that. We're gonna go ahead and move on to the next guest on Video Ninja. Let's see, the person who's been in here the longest. Aaron, if this is the Aaron I think it is, he's been trying to get in, so we'll go ahead and get him unmuted. Aaron, how are you doing?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Let me turn you up a little bit, though. I can hear you. How you doing?
Cool. I'm pretty good, man. How are you?
I'm good. You're finally able to make it.
Yeah. Yesterday was a kind of a cluster, so yeah.
Yeah.
Got through,
so
man. Wanted to answer your question.
You did.
Wanted to see what your problem, what's your main problem with God?
Oh yeah, with you, my main problem with God is going to be that God is perfectly okay with creating a female body that doesn't always bleed the first time it has sex, but then he requires a virginity test in which blood is required. And if there is no blood, then you get stoned to unalivement.
Okay, so what are you exactly talking about?
Yeah, I'll read it real quick. So if we go to and let me get this brought up so chat can see it. So what this is going to be is on Deuteronomy 22 verses 13 through 21. I'm just going to summarize it, but essentially from 13 through 19, it gives a story about a man and a woman get married, and the man is lying. It makes it clear in this first part the man is telling a lie, and he's accusing the woman of not being a virgin. And then it says, the parents will then take the cloth that they had sex on, and it says, but I did not find evidence of your daughter's virginity, but here is the evidence of my daughter's virginity. Oh, I'm going to mute you real quick. I'll unmute you when we're done. It's just you have a lot of background noise.
Go ahead.
All right. So anyways, but it says, then they shall spread out the cloth before the elders of the town. The elders of the town shall take that man and punish him. They shall give him or fine him 100 shekels of silver. Right? So that's if the man is lying. However, if this charge is true, that evidence of the woman's virginity was not found, meaning there's no blood on the cloth, then they shall bring the young woman out to the entrance of her father's house. The men of her town shall stone her to death, because she committed a disgraceful act in Israel by prostituting herself in her father's house. So you shall purge the evil from your midst. But the problem with this is we know that only 43% of women bleed the first time they have sex. And the number, as we go further and further back in time, that number decreases. So the question for you that you need to reconcile is, why did God create the human or the female anatomy in such a way that it doesn't always bleed the first time she has sex?
So why didn't he? Okay. So first of all, the major thing with that is, number one, when sin entered the world, everything got messed up. Okay, so when it says it in the Old Testament, I mean, if we're going to stick with Scripture, then we're going to stick with the Old Testament, where it talks about how He made Adam and Eve and they were good. It says it, they were good, which means they didn't have any defects. Once they fell, then sin entered the world and all these defects came into play. Okay, so that could easily be put right into there, that defect right there. But you also have to keep in mind, why was the law even given like that? Okay, all these people, you got to put yourself in the situation. Okay, there's about 1 million people in ancient times. They just left Egypt. Okay, and they're walking around the wilderness. Right, there's no government. There's nothing. All right, all it is Moses and kind of the first pass, and then what God gives them. So everything that they're doing is to create some type of a culture, some type of a semblance of a government. Okay, so obviously, what you just read, in both scenarios, it's saying if they're guilty, then they'd be stoned, or what, whatever it said. So in place was harsh punishment. If you disobeyed God or did anything, then you were going to be killed. That's how it was back then, because they didn't have prisons. They had nothing. There was nothing out there.
They had prisons.
So,
They had prisons.
you got to, well, you excommunicate. Okay, you go live in the wild and die. But there was no prison.
No.
There wasn't
the biggest hold on. So the biggest mistake that a lot of Christians assume is like they were wandering in the wilderness aimlessly. No, they would stop and build, well, the story goes, because
Camps.
we have the Jews have maps. Yeah, they would set up camps, and with these they would have areas where they'd keep prisoners, right? This would be the case. But the issue that you're going to run into, and you didn't answer my question, you gave a nice little history, but the question that I asked is, God gave a law that causes innocent women to be unalived. Innocent women are being stoned under a law that God gave. Why is God creating laws in which innocent women are being unalived due to their biology, something that's beyond their control?
This was in Deuteronomy. This was one of the precepts that Moses brought to the million Israelites. Right? If this happens, then this.
It was the final law before they entered. It was the last set of laws before they entered the promised land, because Moses never entered the promised land. But the question again is, why does God punish innocent women because of the way he created them? Women don't control whether or not they bleed the first time they have sex or not. That's beyond a woman's control.
All right. Well, you're not remembering the situation that these people are in. So I understand your position, but there's also something called reality, all right? So as the Israelites are going through the wilderness for 40 years, different problems arise, and then these people go up to Moses and Aaron and say, hey, how do we solve this problem, right? And what are they going to do? Nothing. They have to do something. So there has to be some type of a law, some type of a precept that's the rule of thumb that can govern the rest of the tribe. You know what I mean? So
does Deuteronomy not come from God? Hold on, did Deuteronomy not come from God?
Listen, it's part of the Old Testament, and it was a way to create a solution for a problem that was in the tribe at the time. So
yeah. So what was my question, and how did that answer it?
You're saying why is it death? I think that's your ultimate question, right? Why?
No. My question is, why did God create a law in which innocent women are going to be killed via stoning for a biological process, a function that is beyond their control?
Okay, well, you're presupposing that they're innocent, number one. We don't know.
We do know that they would have been innocent.
Well, listen, some probably got swept up, right? That's how it is.
Hold on. Do all women bleed the first time they have sex?
Well, I'm just saying. You said it was 40%, right?
Yeah, today it's 43% today, and that's because we have a luxurious lifestyle. We have nice soft seats. We can drive around in cars. We don't need to walk everywhere. But back then, when they had to rely on walking everywhere, they didn't have the soft seats that we have now. It is the case. And it is also the case that, guess what? Not every woman is born with a hymen. It's the case that not every woman is born with a hymen. So some of these women, by the very virtue of just being born the way they're born, they're going to be stoned under the law that God gave.
I understand your argument. So there's several different answers, okay? If you want to get to the very bottom, the very heart of it, very heart of it, according to the Bible, and this stands for every situation you could possibly throw at me. Any kind of moral situation. By the way, if you're an atheist, you don't have a moral framework, so you shouldn't be throwing any
I do have
rocks.
a moral framework. We can talk about how I can ground it in a minute, but I can ground my moral framework.
But it's not grounded in any objective reality.
It is,
because you
but
don't
we can
believe in
get to
God.
that in just a minute.
Okay.
So are you
So the
saying that?
answer,
Are you,
according to
yeah,
the
go
Bible,
ahead.
okay. So anything that can happen to a human in this world, okay, this is a biblical perspective. All right. Love it or hate it. It's what the Bible says. The biblical perspective is anything that could be done to anybody, it's not even close to what we already deserve, which is infinite hell.
Oh, that's just because God has Christians locked into Stockholm syndrome. God quite literally
No,
put you
just
in a
within the
condition.
story.
No. God, well,
Within the
yeah, that's what
story.
I'm saying. Well, yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah, the
saying.
world
It
view.
is the case. It is the case that God arbitrarily chose to sacrifice himself because he didn't need to. God quite literally could
I
have
think so.
decided any other way to reconcile punishment, but he chose to sacrifice himself. And so
You
that
want to know
is
why?
to give. Wait, say that again?
Do you want to know why?
Why?
Because this entire reality, every decision that went into making this specific reality, with all the sin and suffering and everything, it was for the display of the greatness of the glory of his grace. In other
Yeah, I'm
words,
aware.
he didn't choose
Yeah, it's
plan
for his
B.
glory.
This
It's
is
because he's a narcissist. Absolutely. You're right. You're spot on. You
No.
nailed it. That's a banger argument. Thank you for winning this
All right,
for me.
can I
Yes.
can I
It is
reply to your
because
narcissist
well,
comment?
yeah, let me finish. It is because God's a narcissist and God needs to display his glory. He doesn't care about us. It's all about him, which is why he decided to send himself down to sacrifice himself to save us from himself, from the conditions that he set. Is because, yeah, you banged it. You got it right on. He's a narcissist.
Okay, so I'll answer that claim there. What is your definition of God? Can you just define your perspective of what a God is?
Oh, yeah, I would just stick with the basic definition of a God is a mind that created everything.
Okay, so do you think that a mind that created everything is special, or do you think it's not special at all?
I think that's irrelevant to the debate.
No, it's perfectly relevant. I'm establishing value.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you believe? So I'm going to run you through a little syllogism. Do you believe that all choices are either necessary? Well, hold on, let me rephrase that. All choices are either necessary or unnecessary. Necessary meaning it could not be in any possible world any other way. Do you agree with premise one?
It could not be possible in any other world?
Well, no, premise one is just all choices are either necessary or unnecessary. Premise two is necessary choices could not have been any other way in any possible world. Meaning in any possible world that you can think of, it's required.
I guess it would depend on the premise.
Well, these are the premises.
The claim. I mean, the claim. What's the like?
Yeah, so the crucifixion, God could not have done the crucifixion. God could have forgave sin in a different way that didn't require sacrifice.
I disagree. I think that the sacrifice, first of all, he had
so
to. Go ahead.
So hold on. So in all possible worlds, the crucifixion of Jesus and everlasting. Thank you so much for the membership. I greatly appreciate it. So in all possible worlds, the crucifixion was necessary. It had to happen in all possible worlds.
Yeah, I think that before anything was created, when God was thinking about how he wanted to display the apex of his love, the cross came to mind as the ultimate display of all the displays possible. It was the ultimate display of how to show his love.
That's not what I asked. Hold on. The question was the crucifixion necessary? Is it necessary?
Well, according to the fact that God is quenching his own wrath, he deemed it to be necessary. So for him to have his wrath, what is that word? Basically completed, it required him to crush, to kill, to believe.
Is he
And so that's
required to
what
do
he
it, or
did.
did he just desire to do it? Is he required to do it, or did he desire to do it?
Well, from the very beginning, as soon as he chose Israel, he started the sacrifice of animals, which was a foreshadowing of events.
Yeah. Is the sacrifice of anything though? Is it required, or did he desire it? These are
Well, the
important
Bible
questions.
actually says.
Is it required or desired?
Well, the Bible says that life is in the blood. Life is
Yeah.
in
So
the blood. So the blood had to be
I'll
shed.
ask you. Yeah. So I'll ask you again. Coming from God, not from man's perspective, from God's perspective, is sacrifice
Bible.
necessary? Is it required, or did God just desire it? It's not a hard question.
So the way that it went down was the way it had to go down, according to God.
Okay,
according to
so
God's
sacrifice. So sacrifice is required.
word. Yes, because
So
the
is
wages of
God
sin is death.
is sacrifice required because God Himself is bound by sacrifice, or is sacrifice required because God said it's required?
So I can only answer to you based on what the Bible says, and the Bible says that the wages of sin is death, which means there had to be a death sacrifice. So you have to pay the penalty, which was death. Once
But
sin
did
entered
God
the world,
hold
it
on?
was
But did God desire it, or did God? Is it required by God? Like, does God
Both.
have to do the sacrifice, or did God want the sacrifice?
both. He wanted both are true. He
So
desired it, and it had to be done to save.
Okay.
Unless he
So the
didn't want to save
issue-
anybody.
Oh, yeah. So we can defeat this easy. This is going to be an easy way to defeat and show us that the crucifixion is unnecessary. So P1 is all choices are either necessary or unnecessary. P2, necessary choices could have not been any other way. P3, any decision made by an all-powerful being is by definition unnecessary. P4, God
what?
is an all-powerful being.
Unnecessary.
Yeah, and any decision made by an all-powerful being is by definition unnecessary because all-powerful beings lack constraints. So we're going to go
No.
P4.
That's your opinion.
Well, no, that's what unnecessary means. Or sorry, that's what all-powerful means. Is God constrained by anything? What constrains God? What's more powerful than God?
Oh, I thought you were saying something else. Go on.
Yeah, no.
He's unconstrained.
God
He's
is
unconstrained.
hold on. So God's not constrained. So that means that God didn't have to accept sacrifice. God just wanted it, right? God just wanted sacrifice.
There's still objective truth. I mean, he
What does
saw
that have to
what
do with
had
the
to be
price of
done, and he
matzah in
did it.
Judea?
Because the wages of sin is death. If you disobey God, your
Is
punishment
the wage
death.
of sin death because God said it was, or did God have to require it? Was God bound by it because there's something above him that says the wage of sin is death, or is the wage of sin death because God said so? It can only be one of them.
God is the law, so he can't do anything contrary to his own nature. So whatever he says is the objective truth. It's one and the same. You're trying to separate it, but it's the same thing.
No, it's not the truth because God. So if God doesn't say something, then is it truth or not truth if God doesn't say it?
He's the rule. He's the measure.
Oh, that's not the
Everything is
question I
measured by
asked.
him.
If God, so it could be the case
but
then.
that's the answer.
It could. Hold on. So it could be the case where God just decided not to say the price or the wage of sin is death. God could have opted to not say that, correct?
I mean, that's an if question that doesn't matter. That has nothing
It's
to do with
hypothetical.
reality.
It's hypothetical. Is there a possible
Well, yeah, it
world
has
where
nothing to
God?
do.
Is there a case where there's a possible world where God could have just not spoken the words, "The wage of sin is death"? Is that possible?
Is it possible? Is it possible? You could say, is it possible about anything? That's not the world we live in. That's not what
that
the
doesn't.
Bible
Well,
says.
I'm not worried
It
about
has
the world
nothing
we
to do.
live in. Hold on, I'm not worried
Yeah,
about
but you're
the world
making
we live in.
hypotheticals.
Yeah,
that
that's how
don't matter.
hypotheticals work, my dude. I'm surprised.
Yeah,
I'm sorry
no,
you don't know
they
how
don't.
hypotheticals work. This is how hypotheticals
Okay.
work. So the question again
Yeah.
is, could we have
Well,
lived
it's
in a
smoke and
possible
mirrors.
world? Could we
It's
have lived
smoke
in
and
a
mirrors.
possible world where God never uttered the words, "The wage of sin is death"? Yes or no?
If sin entered the world, he would always say it.
So there is something that constraints God to where he has to say the wage of sin is death.
God is going to tell the truth in every situation. So,
well, yeah, but the question is it the truth because it transcends God, or is it the truth because God says it?
So you're trying to separate it again. God is the truth. Okay, he's the measure. All right. So if he says it, then it comes from a place of being.
Yeah, so I'll ask you one more time, and I need like an actual question. I'm just going to drop you because at this point you're not even answering questions.
No.
So the question is, hold on.
That shouldn't be split.
No, I'm not splitting anything. What I am saying is, right, did God have the free will? I'll try to break this down as simple as I can. Did God have the free will to never utter the words, "The wage of sin is death"? Could God have not uttered those words? That's a yes or no.
If sin never entered the world, then yes.
No.
You would have no reason to.
So you're saying then, so what you're saying then is that the wage of sin being death transcends God, meaning it is beyond God. God can't do nothing about that.
No, what I'm saying is that you have to think of him as a perfect being, right? So
hold on, could God hold on. Let me rephrase this one other way. Hold on, let me rephrase this one other way. Is it the case where God could have said, because God is all powerful, could God have said the wage of sin is you're going to go and be purified for a month. You're going to go through hellfire for a month, and then you can come back to the fold. Could God have uttered those words? Say that again.
It's a lie. God's only going to tell the truth to his creation.
So God is bound by the law. The law transcends God.
He is the law. He is truth. So he can't act
Well, that was about enough of that debate. Hanji, can you bring up one of the TikTok guests? I'm going to go ahead and get your audios turned back on here so chat can hear ya.
Hello.
Hi, Jonathan. Can we have your age for TikTok TLS, please?
19.
19? Okay. And are you a Christian or a believer of the Christian God of the Bible?
Yes, I am.
Okay. We believe that the Christian God is a sick monster.
Okay.
Can you prove us wrong?
Well, going back to the answer that you were answering the guy, if what he says transcends him, the Bible actually talks about this and says how God honors his word above his name, right? So what happens is that when you were talking about how if somebody says, oh, the wages of sin is death, in a way, I want to say you're correct, yes, because the thing is that God, once he says something, again, he honors his word above his name. So because of that, right?
Well, hold on, you're missing the argument. You're missing the argument. So my argument is, right, that it is possible that there is a possible world where God never utters those words, because it only becomes the truth when God says it. If as soon as God says the wage of sin is death, then that's the law. But it could be the case where God never utters those words, and God instead could say, the wage of sin is for every is repentance. He could have said the wage of sin is sincere repentance, and that sincere repentance is maybe for every sin that actually harms somebody, maybe you get tickled for 45 minutes by a feather in your most ticklish spot, right?
I mean, and I understand that. I understand what you're saying, but the thing is that he didn't say that until there was sin committed, right? Like he didn't go out of the get-go and say, okay, the wages of sin is death, right? Because he didn't go to Adam and Eve and said, Adam, don't eat this fruit, or Eve, don't eat this fruit because the wages of sin is death. No, they made the choice. And because,
he didn't?
No,
he didn't.
He said, don't eat the fruit, right?
Because why?
Because
he said because you'll surely die. But here's the thing.
Because you would unalive.
When he said that, he didn't say
death.
that. Hold on. He didn't say that because he was trying to scare them and make them feel a certain way. He said that because that was the rule that was already set, but he didn't have to say it, right? They chose to make that decision. It wasn't like it was.
Hold on, though. You're dodging the question. Then the question again is that rule set because he desired it to be set, or is it set because it has to be set? Does the law transcend God?
Well, no, yes, it has to be set. Because the reason why I said that, because he honors his word above his name. Now, the reason why I said it has to be set, because if he is perfect, automatically anything that's not perfect can't be of him. So yeah, because if God
when
was
you
like,
say when you say of him, what do you mean? I'm just asking
of
for
God,
a
right?
question.
When I mean of him, I mean like of him, of his presence, of his glory. So if somebody does wrong, that's not being holy. So when you're not being holy, you can't be in the presence, because there's no way you can be unholy and be in the presence.
Have you read
because
Job?
That goes against his word.
Have you read Job?
Yes.
Yeah, Satan is in God's presence.
But see, that's the thing. Even in the beginning, and you read that in Genesis, it shows how in the beginning, right, after they got deceived, the God cursed him to the ground. So in a way, yes, I believe that the devil can only do as much as God permits or God allows, because he has control.
So you can be in. Hold on. So God could permit us to be in His presence, right?
But the thing is that suffering doesn't necessarily mean you're out of God's presence, because just because something bad happens to you doesn't mean you're necessarily out the presence of God, right? Because you're kind of saying, oh, all bad things means that you're out of the presence.
Hold on. We're not moving away from that yet. You made the claim, right. That evil, like things that have sin that are not holy, cannot be in the presence of God. But Job disagrees with you, right? So we have a case here.
You're missing the point. I didn't say what because the thing is that the Bible says suffering is universal. Rain falls on the good and the bad. That's not necessarily dependent on if you're when I mean sin.
Am I getting gaslit right now? Am I being gaslit right now?
You're not getting gaslit. No, you're not getting gaslit.
You're getting completely gaslit.
No, I'm not. Hold on. Let me explain myself. Evil things or bad things happen, but sin is a direct. It's doing the opposite of what God says. It's disobedience. So disobedience is sin, right? Evil things can happen. Like something bad.
What does that have to do with Satan being in God's presence?
Yeah, hold on. Did Satan sin, Jonathan?
Yes.
Okay, so how was Satan allowed in God's presence in Job? If sin cannot be in front of God,
right?
How is the embodiment of sin, which you believe to be Satan, in front of God?
Not necessarily in front of God. I'll say it like this, right? Because
we'll read Job real quick.
Exactly in front of God. That because that is no explaining necessary. Jonathan, hold on. I need you to focus on what the words of the book say. Okay,
yeah, so lock in.
We're not gonna go around in circles and pretend like it doesn't say what it says.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, it says that Satan is in God's presence here.
Right.
Yeah. So on the day the heavenly beings came to present themselves before the Lord. So the angels are going to present themselves before the Lord. The accuser also came among them. The Lord said to the accuser, and he's talking to him like they're old friends. Where have you come from? The accuser answered the Lord, from going to and fro on the earth, which means they're not on the earth, they're somewhere else. Going to and fro on the earth and from walking up and down on it. The Lord said to the accuser, and then this is where he points out Job. Nowhere in here does Lucifer go, hey, your friend Job there. God points this out. So when you say that sin cannot be in the presence of God, it's just a lie. It's not true. The Bible is full of times when Lucifer is in the presence of God.
But you have to, again, God is the controller of the word. So when I mean the present, when I mean us, I mean like his law says, okay, if you want to be in God's kingdom and God's presence, you can't sin. But in what you just read, yes, right? But this also happens before, when Jesus, again, was in the wilderness and the devil came up to him to tempt him, right? So there can be dialect between Satan and God,
No,
right?
no, the
Because
question
in the
is, hold on. The question
the
is,
spiritual is, can he be in the presence of God? How can they be in the presence of God?
yeah,
Like,
can sinners be in the presence of God? Yes or no?
they can be changed in the presence of God, but they can't dwell in it, right? The presence of God
So
is there to
Satan's not evil
influence.
anymore.
No, because Satan, the thing is,
But they have to
Satan,
be changed.
but here's the thing.
You see
That
how he's backing
change,
himself into a
no,
corner?
I'm not contradicting myself. That change is only allowed for humans because Jesus made the way for us. Satan didn't get that change. He was cursed from the ground, right? So Satan doesn't get that change. So as much as Satan wants to go and be in the presence of God, he can't not do that, because
He
was in the
literally
presence
was
of
in
God. He
Job.
literally
I'm saying he
was.
can't be changed in the presence of God. Not that he wasn't. I said he can't
We're
be
not saying
changed.
that he
No.
changed, because
No, but you
none of
just
us
said
think that Satan changed.
But you just said he wasn't.
No,
Jonathan, you need to stop lying on the scripture. It literally says that he is within his presence to the
I
point to where
didn't say
God
he
makes a
wasn't in
bet
the
with
presence. I said
him.
he can't be changed. I said Satan can't be changed. I
okay,
never
but
said he wasn't in
that's
the
no,
presence.
you did before we even brought up
Right.
Job. That's
Mhm.
what you said, was that sin cannot be in the presence of God. And so we asked you, why then was Satan allowed in the presence of God? And now you're going down a rabbit hole of I mean, about 5 different railroad tracks that I can't keep track of, to be honest.
Right.
So, like, backing up to the original question, if you're incorrect in saying that sin cannot be in the presence of God, because obviously it can. If Satan is allowed in the presence of God, he just cannot be changed as people can, which, I mean, interesting, but okay. When did that change then? Do you know what I mean?
Like, what do you
When
mean?
did it
When did it
become?
change?
Because if things can't happen before God speaks them,
Right.
right? It may be the rule that sin wasn't allowed in God's presence didn't come until later. Was tempted by Satan until after Job was cursed by God.
Well, what I would say to that is, right, again, Jesus and Satan have had conversation and had in face-to-face interactions, right? So it's not like impossible for God and Satan to talk, right? Because they're not bound by any they're not bound by any like distance, because again, they're universal spirits. So I don't understand. I don't see why the devil and Satan can't talk the same way how Jesus and the devil, or Jesus was tempted by the devil in the wilderness.
Okay, so maybe we're missing your point then.
Because that's
What are
what
you
I'm
trying to say when you say that sin cannot be in the presence of God?
When I mean sin within the presence of God, what I was talking about was the direct choice that us humans make on earth to disobey God. Because if we disobey God on earth, then how are we going to be able to live in perfect harmony with him in heaven? Now, can we repent? Can we change our ways? Yes. Right? The thing is not necessary. When Satan is the embodiment of sin, and he's a tempter and he's a deceiver, but there were many times in the Bible where Jesus was confronted by the devil face to face and had conversation.
Okay,
right?
yeah, sure. Let's move on from that, because I
Right.
think we just don't understand what you were saying.
No, what I'm saying is that when it comes to
I
sin,
want to go back to sinning and like making the decision to sin.
Mhm.
Do you think that you can sin without knowing?
Oh yes.
Okay, then how are you making a decision to do so?
because it's our human nature to we just like you never like you always hear the common thing, oh, you know, don't steal the cookie and you steal the cookie, or you know, that stuff. It's always common nature, because you'll find out that anytime we try to please ourselves, especially like every single day, somebody gets hurt in some weird way or
I
another.
don't know about you, but I've never once hurt anybody while pleasing myself. But
No, but I mean, when I mean pleasure means different things. Like, you know, pleasure. Obviously, we're like pleasure means different things. Like pleasing yourself can be like things that you want to do every day that you like to do, or maybe some you never know. You're always gonna find a way to somebody's gonna get hurt, somebody's gonna get something, in just everyday life. It's impossible, right? We all do stuff every day. Some of us may steal, some of us may lie every day, some of us, or maybe not. Some of us are you know, fornicators and adulterers and whatnot. All it spans for a whole bit different, lots of stuff, and it's not that it's you know what I'm saying, it's the worst thing. Well, it is the worst thing, but it's human nature, and it happens all the time. And
so pain comes from pleasing yourself.
huh?
What you're saying is pain comes from pleasing yourself.
Well, think about it like this, right? Right, you have people money, like capitalists and stuff like that. Their pleasure is getting money, but people in the lower side is getting hurt because they have to deal with the menial labor, and there's no love and there's no care for them. And the Bible says that if you don't care for the homeless and the ones that are naked, if you don't clothe them, you're treating God the same way how you treat those people, because He's in their image. So pleasing doesn't necessarily mean like, obviously, like, you know, the sexual, like lust doesn't necessarily mean sexual. It
No,
just means
I know. We're past that. I made the joke. We're moving on, you know?
yeah. So that's what I mean by pleasure.
I'm just having a really hard time staying on the same track, Cyber. I'm sorry.
No. Yeah. You're good. You're good. But I still don't know. Like when we're talking about sin, though, right? So we can say that because the issue is that did Satan choose to sin?
Yes.
Right. So when Satan chose to sin, right, that's why he was cast out of heaven, right? Is because he chose to sin, right?
Right.
Yeah. And the idea is that he was cast out because he can't be in the presence of God, right?
Right.
So if he can't be in the presence of God because of his sin, which he just agreed to, then it is the case that either you run yourself into a contradiction that you're trying to gymnastics your way out, and I'm just not going to let it slide. I'm not going to let you gymnastics your way out of it.
No, well, I think I know where you're going with this. Like, why, if he can't get cast out, then why do we have the chance, right? That's where you're going with this?
Well, no, what I'm saying is that if God can put aside the sin nature of Lucifer, then God could choose to do the same for us, right? Thus, if he could do the same for us, if God can do the same, because God is all powerful, it's not beyond God to do this, then the sacrifice, the atonement is completely unnecessary.
Well, not necessarily, because again, the reason why the atonement is there is because, right? Well, first of all, we'll start with Satan. The reason why he can't go in. The reason why he can't go in because it was a perfect society. There was literally no reason. Created perfect, right? In his will, in his image, and on top of that, you're in heaven. You're in the holies of holies.
It wasn't a perfect society. It wasn't a
no.
God didn't.
For us,
human. Do perfect? No. For Lucifer, when you say heaven was a perfect society, it wasn't. Because if it was a perfect society, then Lucifer never would have sinned because he would have been perfect as well.
It's a perfect society. It's a perfect society, but he still has a choice. And
so there's flaws so there's flaws in the perfect society.
Well, I mean, how he said we're creating we're creating in our own image, right? We're created in his own likeness, but we still decide to do whatever we want to do.
I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about heaven with Lucifer.
But I'm saying like the same way how he had free will, right? Because
so the society wasn't perfect then. If Lucifer if the free will existed to do outside of what God wanted, then it wasn't a perfect society, because if you sin, you're not perfect. If there's one unperfect thing in the society, and in this case we learned it was a bunch of angels, then the society wasn't perfect. God made a mistake.
But the thing is that you can't say he made a mistake, because at the end of the day, God can't say, oh, these people truly love me, if it's forced. So the same way how he can't force us to love him is the same way how he can't necessarily force angels. So if they want to make the choice to go do their own thing, then so be it.
Correct, but if they
You know what
make
I'm
a
saying?
mistake in the society,
Mhm.
then the society itself, by definition, right, it's just definitionally true that it was not a perfect society. Thus, God either isn't perfect because what we would expect from a perfect creator is perfect creation. So this would mean that God is not a perfect creator.
No, what you're expecting is for everybody to be a robot, and that's not the case.
But
Because
no,
what you just told me was that if he wanted to make everything perfect, right, in his own will, why would he, like you're asking them to be like mindless automatons? You're
well,
asking them to be
hold on.
robots.
Let me
They
ask you a
live their own
question because I
choice.
love this argument. The life we live in the grand scheme of eternity, in the grand scheme of God's plan, the life we're
Right.
living now is just a blip, right? It's just a small time
Right.
period, right?
Correct.
Okay, is there free will in heaven?
I mean, realistically, yeah.
So hold on.
Because
Let's say it comes time to worship God, and let's say Ghost or Hanji, we're all in heaven, and Ghost is in the spot that I want to be in when it comes time for prayer, and I just want to go and slap the absolute sonic rings out of her. Will I have the freedom, the free will to hit her?
But that's the thing. If you live a life centered around Christ, you wouldn't want to think that, right? Like the thing is that to get to
But
heaven,
but is the free will there to do it? Whether or not I want to think about it or not is irrelevant. Is the free will there for me to hit
well,
her?
I mean, hypothetically, if it takes free will to love God, then yeah, hypothetically speaking, yes. Because if you have the mindset, right? If you have the mindset that you want to change and you want to do better and you want to live for God, which is why he said, Lord, Lord, haven't we done this in your name? Haven't we done this in your name? But he says, I never knew you because your heart was corrupt. So, if your heart's not there and your heart's not centered towards Christ and to live for him, you won't get there. So I would assume it's the same thing. It's kingdom.
That verse is talking about and to Christians, people who believe that they are
Right.
Christians,
Right.
not
But
to
what I'm saying
people
is
who
the
don't
don't
believe in
hold on.
general.
Yep. Don't
Okay,
interrupt my
continue.
panel. Yeah.
Continue. My
Go
sorry,
ahead.
my apologies.
Go ahead, Ghost.
Sorry, this verse is not talking to people who don't believe.
No, yeah, I
That's all I
agree.
wanted to say.
I agree. Yeah, I'm not. This is it's definitely not for people to. He's talking about the people that are hypocrites that say they're Christian but don't actually have it in their hearts. The same. I'm saying in heaven you wouldn't the way how you filter the bad stuff, if you want to say it like that. The way how you filter that is through the heart. So if the heart of man is perfect, then that would never happen. That process of renewing your mind through Jesus Christ is how you get that filtration into heaven, so that doesn't happen. Right, because the fulfillment of that.
But going back to, if hypothetically Cyber could punch the sonic rings out of me in heaven, hypothetically you agreed to that, yes?
I mean, yeah, it's free will.
Okay. When I get to heaven and God says, I'm gonna send you to hell, you didn't worship me, you didn't believe in me, you didn't love me, I'm just gonna tell him I'm not gonna go.
No, you can't do that.
Why not?
Because free will is a decision to love him, and if you don't love him, then you don't.
But
You can't.
I have the will to punch somebody in the face. I have the will to go wherever I want to go. I decide not to go to hell.
Okay,
God is not powerful enough to stop me if free
no,
will
but then
exists.
if he lets you in, he'd be a hypocrite.
Exactly. If he
But-
allows Cyber to hit me in the face while I'm in
No, but
heaven,
no, you
he's a
can't
little bit of a
blame God.
hypocrite because he promised me eternal peace and happiness
Right,
and
but you
lovey-dovey
can't-
feelings. Why
right.
the heck am I getting socked in the kisser?
But you can't
And it'd
blame
be the
God
other
for
way
your
around,
decision.
truth be told.
But you
Truth
can't
be
blame
told,
God.
I'd be punching the sonic
Wait, but
rings
hold
out of
on.
Cyber
But hold
for
on.
real.
But you can't blame God for the decision that you make.
Yes, I can.
Why?
Yes, I can. Because God knows exactly what it would take in order for me to be convinced of his existence,
But okay,
and he
but
has
if
refused to do
God
that
says
for
if
me.
God says it's a sin to hit your brother and to strike your brother and you strike your brother, is it still God's fault?
Jonathan, listen to me. God knows
Uh-huh.
if the only thing that I am doing wrong is lacking a belief and lacking a love and adornment for this deity, he knows exactly what it would take in order to convince me that he is real, and he chooses every single day that I am down on my knees begging for proof. He
Right.
chooses not to give it to me. It is absolutely 100% and a times 2 his fault, because he planned it. He has predestined those who will believe. You can look at Romans 9, you can look at
Right.
Ephesians 1, you can look at Galatians, you can look at so many places.
It's not that he
Even he
it's
said
not
it.
even it's
Yes,
not that he's
yes, he
Let
did.
her
he's
finish.
okay,
Jonathan,
okay.
in I think it's Luke. In Luke, Jesus himself says, "No one can come to me unless it is granted to him by the Father." Nobody is going to heaven unless God said so, because there is no free will if you believe that this God is all powerful and in control. You can't have it both ways.
Well, technically, yeah, you can't do whatever you want if you believe in God, because God's going to say some things are wrong and some things are right. Obviously, you're not going to be able to do whatever you feel like. Like, I don't disagree with you there. But what I'm saying is that the thing is, what you're saying, like how, oh, if God doesn't show me this, God knows what you're gonna choose. It's like if you have a 3-year-old kid, right? And you say, do you want ice cream or do you want broccoli? And the kid's probably gonna say ice cream, right? You already knew the decision that he was gonna make was ice cream, but you're still giving him the free choice. It's the same thing with God. God knows what you're gonna do, but he's not gonna like, oh yeah, push you this way. It's your free will. Now he's gonna say, choose life. Yes, choose me or choose death.
The choice is not free if you're being coerced into it. If you have a pew-pew to your head telling you
But
that you need
nobody's
to
doing
do
that.
this. Yes, God is
doing
literally
that.
doing that.
No, God is saying you have a choice to make, right?
No, God is
But
saying, love me or burn.
well, first of all, the thing is, before we think about hell as burning, right? Hell is a separation from Him, right?
Well, yeah.
Because
Even if we say love me, or be separated from me, it's still a threat. But the question that
no,
I
but it's
want to
not a
ask
threat.
you though,
That's not a threat.
but a
I can
question I want
explain
to
it. I
ask
can
you,
explain
hold
it.
on, there's a quick question I do want to ask, and then we'll hop on this. It's something that I've been thinking about, but I want to get it through before it goes through. So let's say final judgment has already happened. We've already
Right.
had final judgment, and we're sitting there praying, or we're worshiping God in heaven. Keep in mind, final judgment is passed. And let's say, next thing I know, I am seeing a bunch of golden rings fly to my left because Ghost has came over and super kicked me. What happens to Ghost at that point?
But the thing is that what you're saying could never happen. Like, it would
could.
never happen.
We have free will.
no,
It could happen.
Right, but the thing is, the free will on earth is gonna help you pure. You can't. So if you go into heaven thinking that you're gonna possibly do that, you're probably not gonna go, because you
No.
having ill
It's not that. It's not that Ghost was thinking about that. It could have been the case where Ghost is the most peaceful person on earth. It is just the case that in this circumstance, Ghost really wants that worship spot, and I am getting super kicked. So does
God would
Ghost?
already-
So what happens to Ghost?
What if it wasn't even intentional? What if we just had a collision? You know, I stubbed my toe. There's not supposed to be any pain. What if I just bumped him too hard? Whoops, sorry, I tripped.
But that's not a sin.
Well, that's why I'm going with the
Still
super
pain.
kick. Well, that's why I'm going with the super kick, because that's an intentional. And so you're either going to run into two things. Either one, because final judgment has already happened. So it's either going to be the case that Ghost either doesn't have the free will, which is what you're trying to dance around. Either Ghost doesn't have the free will, thus we don't have free will in heaven, which is going to be the rest of our existence. The majority of our existence is without free will. Or it's the case that Ghost, there are two cats outside fighting, but it is the case that Ghost can kick me, does have the free will, and because final judgment has always happened, Ghost is going to be allowed to remain there.
No, but Ghost already answered. She already said something about free will, and I said it's true. You're not gonna have the free will to do whatever you want if you choose to love Jesus, because if Jesus is doing this is wrong, and if you love him, you're just not going to do it. So
So
of course there's
ultimately,
not going to be.
God doesn't care about free will. That's my point. You conceded my point. The whole point is that God doesn't give two shits about free will at all. He doesn't care.
Okay,
Ultimately,
you know what?
he doesn't care. That was the point.
For the sake of this, sure, yes, I'll agree. God, because at the end of the day, if I go to somebody and smack him in the face, and God says that's wrong, that's not free will. So yes, he doesn't care about free will because if I choose to hurt somebody off of my free will, he's going to say that's wrong. So yes,
No, no,
free
no, no,
will is
no, no,
not the
no.
biggest
That's not
concern.
what I'm talking about. What I'm talking
No,
about. Hold
but
on.
you
What
said if
I'm
somebody
talking
kicks
about.
somebody, right? You said if somebody kicks somebody intentionally and he says it's wrong, yeah, that's not free will, like you
No,
said.
no, no. That's not what I'm talking about though. What is if Ghost kicks me? Final judgment is
Mhm.
passed,
Right.
and Ghost kicks me. What happens to
Mhm.
Ghost?
It just wouldn't happen
Yeah, so
because
there is
that.
no free will. So there is no free will in heaven. Thus, this life is literally just a blip. So Christians, pay attention to this man. God
Mhm.
doesn't care about free will. God doesn't care about free will at all. There for the small blip that we're going to be here for only probably 70 to 90 years on this earth max. After
Right.
those 70 to 90 years, God doesn't care about free will. It doesn't matter. It doesn't exist. There is no free will. God doesn't care.
Sure, if you want to go with that, sure.
Yeah, so stop with the free will argument. God doesn't care about it. It's
No,
irrelevant to
but the
God.
thing is, heaven and earth is separate. You
Yeah, I'm
have free
aware.
will on earth because you can do the decision that you made. But once you make that decision to follow God, and if you're going to make that decision to follow God in heaven, it says you're going to be giving praises, it's going to be glory, thanksgiving all the time,
Uh-huh.
praising and
And
worshiping
no free
God.
will.
Right?
And no free will. God doesn't care about free will. That's the point.
Well, because if you're in heaven, you want to do those things. So that's all you're going to be doing all the time. Free will on this earth is to choose whether you want to live
Wait, so
for him or
hold
you
on.
don't want
Is
to
it the
live for him.
case that in heaven we don't have the freedom of thought anymore?
Well, all you be thinking about is praising because I mean you're in
How do you
heaven.
know
Like,
that?
but what else would you want? But what else would you want to think about in heaven?
Wait. So why? So if all we're gonna do in heaven, because see, this is the contradictions. This is where you're tying yourself in knots. If all we do in
Mhm.
heaven is think about and praise God, and there's no free will because that's all we're gonna want to do, how did Lucifer sin?
Again, he has his own thing that he wants to do.
Yeah, count.
But
So likewise, we could have our own thing that we want to do, right?
right, but the thing is that the reason why it's different is simply because of Jesus and him dying on the cross and the remission of sins. That wasn't there before, which is why we're able to repent and we were able to forgive. So that's why that whole thing is different because literally Jesus is that line for us when we go to heaven. The judgment.
Earlier you said it was different because the devil is an angel and the angels have different rules than
Yeah.
humans.
No, right. In the beginning, right? In the beginning, everything was perfect, right? Everything was the way it was. And again, the devil did his own thing, such and such. But when we go to heaven, it's literally because of Jesus why we have that opportunity, why it's so
Hey,
separate.
question. I do have a quick question. What is the name of this deity that you believe in? Just out of curiosity.
Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ.
His name and he appears. I believe in Joe Hendry. I believe in Joe Hendry.
I'm sorry. That guy was twisting himself into so many knots, and as soon as he would get caught, he was backtracking so much. So much.
Oh my word.
And
My
it is
head
the
hurts.
case, like Tenebris is saying, God clearly changed. Let's bring up one more guest on TikTok.
Those were extra level excuses that I've never heard before, and that was honestly pathetic.
For real. Wow.
Jackson, can we have your age for TikTok TOS, please?
22.
All right, then are you a Christian or a believer of the God of the Christian Bible?
Yeah, Christian.
Okay, we believe that the Christian God is a sick monster. Can you prove us wrong?
Depends on what you mean, but I wanted to clarify that last guess, what y'all were talking about. Whenever y'all were talking about, or he brought up that hell is like the absence of God's presence or whatever.
Yeah,
And
quick question. What's the name of the deity
yeah,
that you worship?
are you gonna do that thing again?
No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Almost got me. Uh, yeah. So he would say it's absence from God's presence. I would want to clarify that. I would say y'all are both wrong on the topic, and we can talk about it. So like you can't flee God's presence, and I was saying this in the chat earlier. Somebody was talking about it. Psalm 139 talks about, like, it says, if I ascend into heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in hell, you are there. Talking about God. But when you're in hell, that is not the absence of God entirely. It's the absence of God's grace and mercy. So you're in the presence of God's judgment when you're in hell. And then heaven would be the absence of God's judgment, but the presence of his grace.
So you really do believe that if you don't love this God, he himself will torture you forever?
What do
Does
you
he at
mean?
least put a collar on?
What do you mean believe?
I mean, I'm asking you, is that what you believe? If you believe that God is in charge of what happens in hell, you're in the presence of his
full wrath
his
and
wrath.
judgment. Yeah.
It's him. It's not Satan. So you believe that if you don't love this God, he will personally torture you forever.
Well, it's not a sense of two choices. It's you bearing it yourself. You bearing the wrath yourself and choosing not to believe in the work. Like
So it is
you
choices.
facing the punishment yourself instead of Christ.
So it is choices.
Are you just asking, is there free will, like we are talking about earlier?
No, I'm asking you because you said it's not two choices, and then you said choice. You have a choice, so I'm confused.
I might have misspoke there. Yeah, I mean, you choose, we choose where we want to be. We're not like forced there.
Okay, so honestly, I'm just going to go back to I just won't go.
Okay. Do
I
what?
choose not to be there. I choose not to be there. I just won't go.
Go where?
To God's wrath.
Yeah, we just say no.
Yeah, no.
So you want to be in God's grace and presence?
Not
Or
really.
God's
I'd
grace.
prefer to go to a medium place.
But there is no where you can go where God is not there. Because he is the creator of everything.
Let's be real. I'm going to take one look at heaven and see that there's a bunch of MAGA going that way, and I'm going to be like, I'm going to hell. I'm putting myself there. I don't know. No final. I'm putting myself there.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so I guess the question then would be, is so you believe though that final judgment just isn't a thing?
Do you mean, what do you mean by like earth judgment?
Well, yeah, so the idea is that we live this life, we have free will, we execute free will, we die, and then during this time, if like you're Catholic, you go into like a purgatory place, but then there is the second coming, Christ comes back, and then there's a millennium where there's a resurrection of the dead. We're going to live on the earth with Christ as king for 1,000 years, and then with Satan bound, so there's no sin. And then at the end of that 1,000 years is when Lucifer gets set loose again, and that's when we're going to have like our final test. And after that test is when Lucifer is permanently defeated, and then we go into final judgment. And based on that final judgment is where we are assigned to heaven or hell.
I see what you're saying. Well, the 1,000-year reign, I come from I don't want to say I come from it. I'm learning of it right now.
You're not
It's
Mormon,
like
are you?
No, 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 no. I'm not
Okay.
MAGA either. I saw that comment in the chat. I come from a doctrine of believing that when the 1,000-year reign is happening, it won't be Gentiles like today. That it'll be Christ will reign as King of Israel for the remnant of Israel. And that's where you see, like in Revelation, about the 144,000 for the 12 tribes of, you know, Israel. So just clarifying that part. I don't think that'll be for us. The rapture will take up Jews and Gentiles that are in Christ today as the body of Christ. So there will be no body of Christ when Christ returns. If that makes sense.
Okay, that's an interesting view, but yeah, I could see how scripture could lead one to believe that. I can see and understand that. Yeah, I'm good with that because that's kind of what scripture alludes to.
Sure.
Yeah. So I guess the question though is just to get back on topic, is why did God create the world in such a way that it gives us cancer?
That it definitely does, or that it can?
Well, so UV rays that come from the sun mutates our cells. Now, for some people, it mutates the cells in such a way that skin cancer is inevitable. For some people, they don't get skin cancer. So it's not that everybody gets skin cancer, but we do get skin cancer because of the UV rays that God created to come from the sun.
Yeah. The why
And yeah, I
God
guess and I
questions are
guess
always so
it
hard
does.
to
I guess
answer.
if you like live long enough, technically you would eventually get it, but you may not get it in your lifetime.
Right. Yeah, the why God questions are always so tough to answer. I mean, I can just say I don't know.
And that's the best answer. Let's
Yeah.
give let's see Jackson. Let's give Jackson some W's for being honest. Like I really appreciate when there's honesty, because the issue that we run into. Yeah, so the problem that we run into is ultimately the naturalistic problem of evil, right? Because it's really easy when we talk about the problem of evil and we point out things in the Bible in which humans are punished. But the hard one to really answer is when we talk about the naturalistic problem of evil, is where God created a world in which before humans even existed, there were 5 mass extinction events where God unalived every creature on the planet at least 5 different times. Not every creature, but mass amounts of creatures. Creatures still survived, but mass amounts of creatures went extinct as a result of it. We live in a world where people are literally starving today because of the earth that God created in the area that they live. We live on a planet where over 99% of the water is poisonous to us. The sun quite literally gives us skin cancer. And so we just live in this world that seems to not want to cultivate life. It seems to want to make life go extinct.
Right. So what would your question be?
Yeah, why did God create a world in such a manner?
Just the same, yeah. Again, I would say I don't know. I mean, you could reason to say 2 sides, like whatever your response would be, that, you know, it shows God. I don't really know what you would say, but
yeah, my
I know
world.
one perspective. One perspective would just be, you don't know you don't know the intentionality behind it, or what could happen, or what was caused from it, like the butterfly effect or whatever people call it, you know.
But
That
God
kind of
does, right?
Mm-hmm.
God
Well,
does know what would happen, right?
Right.
Right. So why would God, knowing that the sun is going to cause us cancer, make the sun cause us cancer when he could have made it a different way?
Again, I wouldn't fully know, but you could say that maybe it is the case that this is the only universe or world where that could come about where this
Well,
stuff happens.
you
So
have
he
to be.
couldn't have done it a different way then.
He
Could
couldn't
he have?
have.
He couldn't have. Okay.
Yeah, because so like
Well, I
Preston's
mean, I said
saying,
I
and
don't
what
know
I
at first.
think Ghost is alluding to. Yeah, so if it is the case that this is the only way God could have created it, then you just have to concede that God's not all powerful.
But why would that be?
Yeah, because then
not all powerful?
Yeah, I can give you a syllogism
Okay.
for that real quick. It's kind of it's a modification of the one I was just running, but it is the case that P1 is all choices are either necessary or unnecessary. P2, necessary choices could not have been any other way in any possible world. P3, any decision made by an all-powerful being is by definition unnecessary because all-powerful beings lack constraints. God has a constraint, meaning he could not have created, under what you're saying, he could not have created it any other way. Thus, God is not all-powerful. But let me
Is
run
that just
something.
by asserting that God cannot constrain himself?
Well, if God's constraining himself, that would just add into God being a sick fuck because he is intentionally restraining himself. He desires to restrain himself. Thus, anything that comes as a result of him restraining himself is something that he desired. Because God would then be all-knowing, and he would know that by restraining himself, these horrific things will happen.
But if he was restraining himself because this was the only way that we would be able to have free will in the first place, would that not show that?
Hold on. What does UV rays giving us skin cancer, earthquakes and volcanoes wiping out complete civilizations, and starvation? What do these have to do with free will?
I see what you're saying. I thought you were going back to us choosing.
Nope, this is a naturalistic problem of evil.
Yeah. I don't know what a response to that would be. I guess people could say,
yeah, and like Rainbow Ghost is saying in chat, we could have free will without cancer and P3DOs. Those are not needed.
Amen.
yeah. I mean,
and wasps. We don't need wasps.
I think the point really is you can either have God be all-knowing or all-powerful. You can't really have both if he is also all-loving.
Could it also be to show that like creation is like broken?
Who broke it would be the
because
question.
of sin.
And who put it there?
Who put what?
Who put sin there?
Sin is, when I say like the earth didn't sin.
No, I know you're talking about human sin. Look,
Nice.
the baby. But
it is a
like,
baby.
Yes, so cute. Who put the sin there? Who's responsible?
Originally, I would say, Adam and Eve, they brought the sin entered after that.
And see, I would disagree because I think that God knew that they were going to eat of the tree, so God should just have not planted the tree if he didn't want them to eat it.
But if he didn't plant it, would it have taken away their free will or no?
No, because they didn't have any knowledge of good and evil. They were literally living in peace and harmony with the free will that you're talking about.
Well, if they didn't have knowledge of good and evil, then how would they have had free will?
Well, the
So
question
God
is,
created without free will, and then they got free will when they ate from the tree.
I thought that's what you were saying.
No, I'm sorry. No, I was asking you if. Geez, now I don't even remember what I was saying.
I know this is such a hard thing to talk about.
You cannot have all knowing and all powerful and all loving. The three cannot relate in if earthquakes and volcanoes, etc., happen. If God knew that they were going to happen and could have created them a different way because he's all powerful, then he's not all loving. But if he is all loving and he only created them this way because he wanted us to have free will, and he was constrained by the universal laws, then he's not all powerful. Or he didn't know what he was creating was going to turn out that way, so he's not all knowing. You can't have all three.
Could you have all three, and this may be a bad argument, I just thought it really quickly. Could you have all three as well as have other qualities like judgment, like holiness, where you will deal with sin?
So
Or
the
no?
question,
That probably doesn't make
is,
sense, actually.
so the question is like, because the argument that we run into quite a bit, right, is because people be like, well, there's morality, right? Atheists can't ground morality, but the question that you're going to have to run into is, let's take Schmurder for example. Is Schmurder is it immoral? Is it sinful because God said it's sinful, or has it always been sinful?
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah, so if we take any sin, but in this case I'm going to take like Schmurder or grape. Are Schmurder and grape, are these wrong because God actually says they're wrong, or are they wrong because they've just always been wrong?
Does it have to be one or the other?
Yeah, because you run if it's both right and wrong, you run into a contradiction. So, is there a possible world where God could have said that grape is okay?
I would say no.
Right. So, if the
I want to
answer
hear
is
what you have to say, though. Yeah.
yeah, so if the answer is no, then that means that these laws, these morals, transcend God, right? They're above God. So again, that takes away from God being all powerful, and that would just run into an issue with God's justice. There is no God's justice, there is no God's mercy if these laws transcend God. God is bound by the rules of these laws as well.
Can you clarify what you mean by transcend? Like, what you mean by what you just said?
Yeah,
I'm
it
just not following
means
that greatly.
yeah, it means that the law that grape is wrong still exists even without God. So in all possible worlds, even in a world where God does not exist, grape would still be wrong because it transcends God.
Gotcha.
But let me run you through a
Is
syllogism
it
though.
if he doesn't? Was the original thing you said if God doesn't say it's wrong?
Yeah, is there a possible world where God can say grape is okay? It's not a sin.
Okay. Well, my mind just went straight to people bring up the argument about like pedophilia or whatever in the Bible, and like it's never explicitly talked about, and so I thought that's where you were trying to go with that.
Oh, no. I'm
Because like
talking
he
about
doesn't
like grape in
explicitly
general.
say pedophilia is wrong in the Bible, but like we can infer it based off the attributes of him. in the Bible. But I see what you're saying now.
Quick reminder to use TikTok friendly language. We need to use P3DO when we say that word, please.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
And whenever you said Smurder, I just automatically think of Smurfs being killed. I don't know. Yeah.
So the issues that you're running into, the issues that we run into is that, as you've heard, you're either going to run into a case where free will just doesn't exist, or at least God doesn't care about it because, again, only 70 to 80 years. But let me run you through a syllogism. So the syllogism that I will run you through is kind of what I was trying to run through a guest a while back, is going to be that I'm going to prove that there's not a necessity for God. Are you familiar with what Occam's razor is?
I've heard of that phrase, but I can't remember exactly what it is.
Okay, what Occam's razor says is that if we both start at the same place and we're trying to draw a conclusion and we come to the same exact conclusion, but whichever side can get there with the least amount of steps, but it's the exact same conclusion, the one that has the least amount of steps or baggage is probably the one we're going to go with. Think of it like driving across the United States. If we're both leaving New York City and we're going to drive to San Diego, and so we're both starting in New York City at the same parking lot, and we're going to the same parking lot in San Diego, if I drive straight through, but you decide you're going to drive all the way south to the Florida Keys, then you're going to drive over to Yellowstone National Park, and you're going to spend a day or two visiting Yellowstone National Park. And then you're going to finally go to Yosemite, and then you're going to San Diego. Who's going to get there faster?
Yeah, the shortest one.
Yeah, and so for all future routing, if people are trying to get there in a hurry, we're going to give them my route and not your route. That's what Occam's razor says, essentially.
Yeah, I see now.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a syllogism that through Occam's razor is just going to show that God isn't necessary, and that the world we live in, with all the problems we talked about with earthquakes, cancer, Lesch-Nyhan syndrome existing, all these things, slavery, is exactly what we would expect in a naturalistic world. So it's going to be, premise one is going to be that all creation entails a change of states of reality. Premise two, a change of states reality is the progression of one state to another. The progression of states is time. Are there any one of those premises that you disagree with?
I'm sorry, I just got so lost earlier. Can you go back over the first one and two that you just said?
Yeah, absolutely. Not a problem. So premise one is that all creation entails a change of states of reality. Do you agree with that? Yes or no?
Could I ask what you mean by that first?
Yeah. So there was a time when there was no universe, and then there was a universe in your worldview that was created.
Okay.
Right. And that no universe to go into a universe is a change of states of reality.
Okay.
And you agree with that?
Probably.
Okay. A change of states of reality is the progression from one state to another, meaning that we went from no creation to creation. We just progressed from nothing to something.
Sure.
Okay. And the progression of states is time. So we mark time by saying, here's a progression from this state to this state. That takes time.
Okay.
So through this, all this states is that because of this progression of states, that time is required to create. And thus, without time, you can't create. Thus, God can't create because time is required to create, because progression of states happen within a mind as well. You go through noticing that there is nothing, to wanting to process, to create, to move to think, to actually create. So even wherever God is at, no matter, because you'll hear the argument where people will say, well, God's atemporal, he's not in our time. Well, wherever God is at, the progression of states still exists. It may not be how we count time, but the progression of states still exists. Thus, time in some form exists where God is at. Thus, since time could not have been created, time has always existed. We do know that through special and general relativity, that space and time are intertwined. Thus, the universe has always existed. Thus, through Occam's razor, God is not necessary. Thus, we would just eliminate God from any creation, because this is the exact world we would expect through naturalism.
Gotcha.
But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and move on. Jackson, I appreciate you. I really do. I appreciate you coming up. You have been super respectful, and it means a lot. It really does. And I'm actually going to give you a follow. I might give you a follow. If I can give me a follow, I'll follow you back. I would love to have you back on the panel. And who knows, maybe you'll come back as an atheist. I don't know. Maybe.
We'll see. Thank y'all.
But yeah, thanks for coming up. Let's give Jackson some massive, massive W's. Jackson.
Massive W's. It's really great to have a respectful conversation.
See, Christians, it's not that hard.
All right, we've got Yeah, we've got nobody else. And while we're here right now, there are 112 of you over here on TikTok. There are 89 of you over on YouTube. If you like the debates, if you really love the debates, feel free to, if you're here, give me a follow, give me a subscription. I'd appreciate the subscription. If you're over on YouTube, give me a subscribe. And if you want to support me, go ahead and get a membership. You can also send super chats. And speaking of super chats, I'm going to go take a look and see if we have got any. If I have super chats, I will definitely read them. We got one from Justin Coinor for $2, saying, here's an easy one: God drowns babies. So yeah, God yeah, so in that case, God drowns babies. We do have a case where God literally floods the earth and drowns babies, which kind of goes to show me that God just doesn't view children as innocent. And I don't have anybody going, but if you like the debates, do it. I don't know if Ghost is going to end up popping over to YouTube, if she's able to, but maybe she'll pop over to YouTube. Give her a follow, give her a subscription, so that then every time she goes live, you can join her. She normally goes live during the day. And I've got a few, I guess, that are waiting on the tiny URL link. So let's go ahead and go check that out. The nice thing about this is it does let me know who's been sitting in there for a minute. We've got some people have been sitting in there for an hour. So I'm going to go ahead and got to get some changes over here on the TikTok first, so we don't get echoes. I'm going to try to leave this one open, and hopefully by leaving this one open, you guys will be able to hear. But if I do hear that there's echoes, I'm going to have to go through and mute that one. And we're going to go ahead and bring up a person. We're going to go ahead and bring them up. And a person, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, sir. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. You've been waiting for almost an hour, and I appreciate it. Can I get your age?
I'm 18.
All right.
18.
What year did you graduate high school?
I graduate soon.
Okay.
Haven't fully graduated.
Fair enough. All right. And real quick, Ghost, can you hear the guest?
I can, but there is an echo on my end.
Okay. That I'm going. Do you want to keep hearing, or do you want me to turn that off so you can't hear?
Yeah, I mean, I can hear it. That's fine.
Okay.
As long as it's not
And
echoing for everybody in the chat.
yeah, and Chad, is there an echo with the guest? If there's an echo, then we will. But anyways, okay, they don't have an echo. All right, so we're good. I figured out how to get it so that my panel can hear it. So I believe that God is a sick fuck. Why is God a sick fuck?
So I'm gonna have to kind of disagree there, sir. But I've been kind of listening in on what you've been saying over the past hour, just kind of gathering your ideas, your thoughts, what you've been saying to others, what others have been saying. And I have a quick question for you, just side note.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a prior Christian turned atheist?
I am a former Orthodox Jewish person turned atheist. I've never been Christian. I took a couple reads at Matthew and closed the book and said that's goofy. And then I went and got a master's degree in theology, so I had to read it, and I still think it's goofy.
You know, and that makes a lot of sense. Because I feel like you might be missing a few facts here and there, but you seem to be pretty knowledgeable when it comes to verses of the Bible and where to find certain stories. So I'll give you some credit for that. Um, I'd like to point out some things though.
Mm-hmm.
The first being when you say slavery and God condones slavery, that is what you said, correct? Earlier?
Yes, absolutely.
So the first thing with that one is what we call slavery today is absolutely not what it was back then. If you took a lot of theology, you probably had some history with it, Hebrew history, things like that. They were allowed back then to have houses, communities, buildings, things like that. They just weren't allowed to necessarily carry weapons or things that could cause a riot, or there would be certain restrictions on other things that they had to do. It was
Were
something
they
I
allowed to
noticed.
be beat? Were they allowed to be beat?
So that's okay. So that kind of leads into another thing. Everywhere you go, people are raised differently. I don't know where you currently reside. I know in America, we're raised that you don't hit, you necessarily don't hit people, you don't beat people, you don't give them lashes. In the Middle East, it is perfectly acceptable if to shoot them, to if I backtalk my parents, it is perfectly acceptable to drag me out and
But these are
stone me.
humans that made these laws, right?
So, okay, yeah, yes, sir, yes, sir. So this goes back
Yeah, so in
to Moses' law.
Exodus, well,
So
hold
this
on.
goes
Did God give the law to Moses or not?
not that law, not those laws. So the laws that, so the laws that were given to
What
Moses.
is your what is your understanding of what happened on Mount Sinai?
So I'm gonna be completely honest with you, sir. It has been a hot minute for me. But what I remember, Moses did go up to Mount Sinai. Moses received was it he
The
received the
Ten
stone tablets.
Commandments. It's in
Is the
Exodus
Ten
20.
Commandments.
Yep.
He came down and saw that the people had already started essentially worshiping other things.
Yep. And that's not what happened. So are you able to see the screen right now on YouTube?
I cannot, sir. I wasn't able to pull up multiple devices. I
Okay,
was
yeah,
only able to
that's
use
not a problem.
video.
Yeah, that's not a problem. So the Ten Commandments are found in Exodus 20. So we're going to go from Exodus 20, and even though you can't see this, I'll just read it off. So Exodus 20, we'll go to Exodus 21. They're still on Mount Sinai. We are going to go to Exodus, and so Exodus 21 is the slavery laws. So God gives slavery laws in Exodus 21. We're in Exodus 22. We're going to go to Exodus 23. This is where we're learning about the sabbatical year. And during this time, Moses is still on Mount Sinai. We're going to go to Exodus 24. We're getting the blood of the covenant. So this is a sacrifice law. Moses is still on Mount Sinai. 25, chapter 25 is the offerings for the tabernacle and the Ark and the Covenant. God is telling him how to build the Ark and the Covenant. Still on Mount Sinai. Exodus 26, we're getting the laws on how to build the tabernacle. Still on Mount Sinai. Exodus 27, altar of burnt offering. We still have him on the temple. He's talking about how the laws for burnt offerings. We're going to go to Exodus 28. We're talking about the clothing for the priests. We're still on Mount Sinai. Haven't came down. Verse 29, we're talking about the ordination of the priests. Verse 30, we're talking about the altar of incense and the half shekel for the sanctuary. We're still on Mount Sinai. On Exodus 31 is where we get, in verse 18, the 2 tablets of the covenant. When God finished speaking with Moses on Mount Sinai, he gave him 2 tablets of the covenant, tablets of stone written with the finger of God. So when on Mount Sinai, that's when Moses received the covenant. The entire covenant was on Mount Sinai. It wasn't just the 10 commandments. That's a big Christian misconception. He received the entirety of the law.
You're right. Yes, sir. And I'm seeing that as I'm looking through. Like I said, it has been a hot minute since I've looked in Exodus. You know, there were some things though that, you know, Jesus came back in the New Testament and he changed. But going to back to the slavery portion of this, because I know I'm kind of bouncing, so forgive me. Going back to slavery portion of this, God wasn't necessarily condoning it. God was allowing the Israelites to be punished. So if you think of it this way,
to be punished, he just saved them. They just paid for their sins. He's saving them because he saved them from their sins.
So in Old Testament, forgive me, I've got my nerves a little bit right now.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. You're chill. You're chill.
So put it the best way. If you're with your family and you're a child, okay, and you tell your child the first time not to do something and you forgive him, and then he keeps doing the same thing that he knows is wrong over and over, there's going to be consequences that follow this. It's a free will kind of thing, because I noticed you said earlier that, you know, free will means nothing to God. But free will, we all have free will in this world. It's just there are consequences that we have to follow with it. You know, there's right and wrong.
The only issue that I have with this argument that you're giving is the case that I am not all knowing. I'm not all powerful. I am not all loving. I'm not everywhere at once. But if I was all these things, I would have the ability to express to my children in a way that they would not do the sin, right? They wouldn't do it because I'd be able to express it perfectly to them. But the issue is that at this time, they have left, right? This all is happening before the golden calf, right? If you remember, how many days was Moses on top of Mount Sinai?
Oh gosh. It would have been
40.
It was quite a,
he was on,
it was 40.
He was
I
on
would say I
40
didn't know
days.
if it was 40 or not.
Yeah, that's fine. So he was on there for 40 days, and God is writing these with his little finger. God is working his little God hand to nubs. But the issue that we run into is that God does say, in right here, when you buy a male Hebrew slave, he shall serve 6 years, but in the 7th he shall go out a free person without debt. But the qualifier for that is a male Hebrew slave. If he comes in single, he shall go out single. If he comes in married, then his wife shall go out with him. If his master gives him a wife, and she bears him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he goes out alone. So essentially what this is saying is, if I go in by myself, right? So if I come in single, I go out single. So if I go in by myself, then I'll go out by myself. But let's say Ghost and I are married, and I go into this slavery married to Ghost. Well, I went in married, I get to come out married. But let's say instead that God, I go in single, and my master, Hanji, decides to say, you know what? I want more slaves. I want more slaves. Hanji could then give me Ghost to be my wife, because then it says if his master gives him a wife and she bears him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her masters, and he goes out alone. So Hanji is incentivized by the law of God to have Ghost marry me, because that gives Hanji more slaves through the children that we have. But then it says, but if the slave declares, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out a free person, then his master shall bring him before God. He shall be brought to the door or the doorpost, and his master shall pierce his ear with an awl, and he shall serve him for life. So in this case, if I want to stay with Ghost because I want to stay with my family, well, now I have to become a slave for life. I don't get the freedom. And then right here in verse 7, when a man sells his daughter as a slave, she shall not go out as the male slaves do. So the female slaves, they don't go out after 7 years. They are slaves forever.
So, I guess another thing you could bring up in that one is that, you know, slaves back then were also treated, again, they were treated differently, especially in a household. More like a butler, in the sense that
that's not true.
In which way?
There is no evidence of that. You'd have to provide evidence that that's the case. I'm sure that's apologetics that you've heard, but you just need to show evidence of that. Because what we do see is in Exodus 21, when a slave owner strikes a male or female slave with a rod, and the slave dies immediately, the owner shall be punished. But that's only if the slave dies immediately. Verse 21, but if the slave survives a day or two, there is no punishment, for the slave is the owner's property.
So again, that kind of goes into how they were raised, and that is, that is the law of man that was created for that one. That God is,
is this the law of man, or is this the law of God? This is Exodus 21. This is right after the 10 Commandments.
Let me see.
This is the chapter right after the 10 Commandments.
I have a question, if you don't mind. What is the translation getting? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm actually asking. I apologize. I'm listening to you. We've been very interested in what you have to say. And my question is this. There's a lot of back and forth about translations, right? So I would actually need to ask you, did you ever go through and read the Hebrew, Greek, or Roman translation to everything that's happening, and then go back through the actual Bible and go, which translation did you go from there? Because what our words mean today do not mean the same as they.
I'll show this. So I read in Hebrew.
Sweet. See, I can't do that, but I have to go back through and, like, for instance, there are a lot of words that were they were Greek, you know. So we have to be very careful with how the word translated.
So the word that's being used here, whenever we talk about slave, slave is eved. So eved is slave. And what we'll read, as a matter of fact, when we go up and we go into Leviticus, I opened up the wrong thing. When we go over into Leviticus, the issue that we run into in Leviticus, especially problematic when we run into with people who try to run it meant servant and stuff, is, and I'll just show this. I don't know if you guys will see this, but there is go to Leviticus 25:39. Hebrew. And so what we're going to see here, let me get this opened up. And I don't know if you have another source up where you'll be able to see this, but I'll bring it up so chat can see it. But when we go and we look at this in the Hebrew, what you're going to read is, make sure I'm on the right verse here. 40, verse 40. So the word for slave, so right here, what you're going to see in 39 is right here at the end, you're going to see the word slave. So that's Eved or Abed, right? Different stems of the word, right? Now, when we go to verse 40, where you see where it says, they shall remain you as bound or hire laborers. Now, this is talking about the Israelites only. It's talking about their kin. And when it uses the term ish, it's referring to like your countrymen, right? And you'll see like where it says right here, like one of your brothers. But when we go and we look at verse 40, you're going to see a word change here that is extremely important. When we look at the word change, and the word change that you're going to see here, get this brought up, is where you see as a hired servant and a sojourner. You'll see that we don't have a bed being used. We have two different words, completely different words that are being used. We have a kasakir and kotowupsa. So these are two different words that mean two different things. So when we go back here, we'll see that there's a difference. So we learned in Exodus. Oh, sorry, did that answer your question real quick? So I'll make sure I answered your question.
It does answer that you are at least going back and forth for that. It also helps for somebody else who may want to debate with you, a good resource that they need to be using.
Yep. And a good, which translation of the Bible do you prefer to use, just out of curiosity?
So I go back and forth. They've got a new King James version. They have the old King James version. It's just a matter of context, really, that I have to go back and forth to any of them.
Okay. One concordance that I will tell you to stay away from is the Strong's Concordance. So what a concordance is, there's a difference between a lexicon and a concordance. A concordance is a lexicon that is for a specific text. So if you ever read the Strong's Concordance, it is a concordance only for the KJV. It's how the KJV chooses to use its language. So stay away from that. If you want to look at a good Hebrew lexicon, look at the Brown Driver's Briggs. That's probably the best Hebrew lexicon you can use when translating words.
Okay, so that's good. Does it cover the Greek words too? Just did it also cover the old Greek words too?
No, for the Greek words, you'll need to go look for a Greek concordance. I need to go look up I don't know of a good Greek concordance, just because I haven't really looked into it, because I don't read the Septuagint.
Greekcenter.org, CNTR.
Okay. No, just one of my
Greekcenter.org. Yeah, my panelist, Hanji, she is Greek. So yeah, Greekcenter.org is a good place to go. Yeah. So anyway, so where we're going to go right here, though, is so whenever we see kin being used, that is reference to fellow Israelites, right? So because kin is like family, tribesmen. So the way it works when we're talking about over here in Exodus, how that indentured servitude works is if any of your kin falls into difficulty, they're going to sell their land. Now let's say they're in difficulty. Now let's say they sold their land, but they're still struggling. So if any of your kin fall into difficulty, then they're going to become dependent. So when they become dependent, this means that they're going to take a loan from you. So not only have they sold their property, but they've also taken a loan from you. And let's say they've taken that loan from you and it's still not enough. So they go from being dependent to impoverished, which means that they sell themselves to you. And it says, you shall not make them, again, these are only the male Hebrew Israelites. You shall not make them serve as slaves. They shall remain with you as hired or bound laborers. We already went over the change of words there. they shall serve with you until the year of the Jubilee. And the reasoning for this is, for they are my servants whom I brought out of the land of Egypt. They shall not be sold as slaves are sold. But then it goes into verse 44. As for the male and female slaves whom you may have. Now, I want you to pay attention. The word here is slaves. Nowhere in this next set of words we're reading are you going to read the words for bound or hired laborers. These words will not appear. As for the male and female slaves whom you may have, it is from the nations around you that you may acquire male and female slaves. You may also acquire them from among the aliens residing with you, and from their families who are with you, who have been born in your land. They may be your property. You may keep them as a possession for your children after you, for them to inherit as property. These you may treat as slaves.
So I'm gonna definitely look into that one more and come back to that one. I might
definitely do.
On that side, just because that is an interesting topic to get into, and you brought up some good points. I will look into it. Another thing that you brought up, and I'm kind of also looking at some of these YouTube comments as well. And it wasn't so much as me trying to come in and educate, like as a let me show you kind of thing. It was a let's talk about this. I enjoy good theological debates, or not debate in the sense, but like conversations, getting different points of view. I guess another thing that you brought up was children. And you kind of brought up also children getting killed by bears. Are you referring to the bears that came up and killed the two children, if you will, after they harassed a prophet?
Yeah, well, it was more than just two. Yeah, so we'll go bring up that story.
Yeah,
And the
it was
important thing here... Yeah, and the important thing here is when we go read that, you'll read that they're little. There's an apologetic out there that recommends that, like, the word being used is talking about, like, that they're, like, probably young adults. But we'll again, I'll go show you the Hebrew, and you'll see where it mentions little in there. And we can go over and I'll show you the congregations of those, and the stems. But what we'll have is it's in 2 Kings. So this is where Elijah, not to be confused with Elijah, Elijah has just become the prophet. Elijah has just gone up into heaven in his chariot. And it says, and he went up there to Bethel, and while he was going up the way, some small boys came out of the city and jeered at him, saying, "Go away, bald head, go away, bald head." And when he turned around, he saw them. He cursed them in the name of the Lord. Then 2 she-bears came out of the woods and mauled 42 of the boys. From there, he went on to Mount Carmel and then to Samaria. So where we're going to go with this is we're going to look up again, 2 Kings, and we'll just go to verse 23. Were you going to argue that they weren't little kids?
No, it was so much as it was so much as the fact that they were jeering and harassing him, which doesn't necessarily make them innocent, but it was God's chosen. So that is a man chosen by God. He demands a respect, if you will.
Yeah, but these are little kids.
So I guess it also could depend on the age of accountability, but that's a whole nother thing that could be gotten into. But kids at this time were taught certain rules of respect, certain ways. And again, this goes back to how they're raised, and the disrespect back then could get you in a whole world of trouble.
But the issue that we're running in here, though, is that we're talking about the use of Uranim and Kotanim, and so we're seeing that they are some use that are little. So these are literally little children, right? These are children that are under the age, they're 12 or younger, right? And when it says youths, I would even argue probably younger, but youth could be anywhere up to probably the age of 19. But when we add the little youth, when we add the little to it, the Kitanim, that definitely goes to them being at least 12, because you become a man, you go through bar mitzvah at 13. So they're at least 12 years old, or sorry, at the oldest 12. They could be younger than that. So 12 and younger. And these are children who probably don't even know that he's the prophet, because he literally just became the prophet. So they probably don't even know he's the prophet.
So I guess with that one, and if I heard correctly, it kind of was cut out a bit there, was I guess another thing would be the robe that he wore is a big giveaway of who he is. Clothing was a big thing as well. You know, what you wore, who wore, that was a known thing.
It stood for status. And I think another thing you need to put into consideration is the age of accountability would be much different, say, 100 years ago than, say, today. A lot of people would argue that the maturity of our youth today does not match what it was then. And I think that really is not just, that's an unfair statement to make. But if you're saying that these are 11 and 12-year-olds, when you have a bar mitzvah at 13 and you're marrying your daughters off at 13, 14, 15, that means that in society, they're old enough to know better.
Well, you would have to give me the argument for that. It's just the case that the reasoning why they were marrying so young is because in their worldview, once a woman, because a woman cannot get pregnant until after she has her monthly, right? That's how we know that a woman is fertile, or a child
Right.
in this case, because it's young, right? So that's the only reason why they were doing it, because they did not have an understanding of human psychology. They didn't understand it. So back in the day, they assumed that, hey, as soon as they're old enough to bleed, that means they can get pregnant. They're old enough to get married, right? Now today we know that that's wrong, because we know that up here they're not where they need to be. They're nowhere where they need to be. They still have years of mental development, right? But our human brain hasn't changed much since then. And so to say that maturity is different, you just need to provide evidence of that. I don't see any evidence. Is it the case that they were probably stronger and they had a harder life? Sure, but I don't think that equates to maturing more.
Fair enough. Like I said, that's an argument that is made. Not that I necessarily stand by that. It would be very hard to prove that. For instance, if you go to a lot of, so we have a very mixed family, but if you go to some of my family, say in America on the West Coast versus some of those that are in the East Coast, there's a very different type of lifestyle. Some of it's financial, but other is cultural. So I like I said, I don't necessarily stand by that argument, but the argument is out there. And
Well,
also,
yeah, you can live. Well, you can wear Oh, sorry. I was reading something. You can live different lifestyles, but that doesn't necessarily have an impact on maturity, right? You'll hear all the time where there are people where you'll look at kids and as a matter of fact, I remember when I was growing up, I grew up in a world where children were to be seen and not heard, right?
Right.
And so I remember that the quieter I was, adults would go up to my parents and be like, that's a very mature child. And it's not the case that I was mature. It was just because I grew up in a world where I just didn't talk around adults. And now we live in a world where and it's the case that children who did talk around adults were just viewed as disrespectful. But in reality, we had the same brains. It wasn't right. We're at the same maturity. It's not the case. It's just I was just taught. Oftentimes because my parents used spanking. Oftentimes it was because I was just like, yeah, I'm not talking. So it's not that people are more mature. It's just their environment teaches them to do certain things and stuff, but it has no impact on the maturity of the brain.
Okay, fair enough. But now let's go into other things. So, for instance, even in our society today, we do have certain roles, positions, careers that have specific type of things. We call them uniforms. So, for instance, if you're walking around, say, the United States, and you see somebody wearing a camouflage uniform, and it's very specific, right? Or even just a specific type of uniform, you're going to go, oh, that person may or may not be in the military, or that person may or may not be a doctor, or maybe that person is a firefighter, or maybe that person is a police officer. That type of clothing is worn to identify. And I think what he was saying here is that in the Bible, you're talking about the bears that came and killed the children. I don't know what the age of the children were. We can guess. That's an account that wasn't given.
They had to have been no older than 12.
Okay. So now you have, again, you have a society that clothing is a very big telltale of what they do and is to hold a certain amount of respect. Now, when he did this, when this prophet did it, the Bible states, that the she bears came out
and mauled
them.
They mauled 42 of the youths.
Yes.
And this could also indicate, I know, that's what I'm saying. So it indicates there could be more, but I don't know about you, but I know that nowadays, even now, dealing with 12-year-olds and even
that's not what he's
10 and 11, oh no, even 10 and 11-year-olds, I know they can be vicious and mean. And there are just some things that, maybe in here it doesn't talk about that caused him to also continue to put this. There's maybe something that's not down here that made him turn around and put a curse on them. Or curse them, my bad. Not put a curse on, but curse them.
Yeah, the issue that you are going to be running into, though, right, is that you are assuming that, everybody knows who the prophet is, right? It's the case that it's not like the prophet just, hangs out in one area, right?
No,
I think that's...
prophets. Yes, sir, you're right. I apologize. And I'm going to tell you that, again, we're going to go back to clothing. We're going to go back to staffs. We're going to go back to mantles. We can go to a whole bunch of different things because in society, 100%, clothing was a big deal. So at the very least, if these children did not know who the man was, they knew his position, they knew his role. And whether it be Elisha or Elijah, it didn't matter if it was him, because they kept a specific, they held a specific position and title. And just like the Pope, they have a very specific uniform. It goes back to uniforms and clothing. So all I'm going to say
the question is, right? So if I live, so for example, I'm Jewish. We live in Jewish communities, right? Are Jewish communities, are they necessarily, are my little children going to necessarily know what the Pope looks like? Are they going to be able to look at the difference between a Pope, a cardinal, an archbishop, a priest? Are they going to know the difference between these people?
Well, for that time frame, absolutely. For our time frame, maybe not so much. We have other things that we consider to be priority. But I know what a yarmulke is, and now I know what a Mennonite looks like without even knowing that they're Mennonites until I see it. They're the only people I know that have their ladies that walk around with what I first thought was a yarmulke. I was like, what are they doing with that? So, I mean, there are little hints here or there.
Can I mention something real quick on the side? I apologize. Because I'm also kind of going through the comments as well, just looking and seeing what other people are saying as well. We're not necessarily defending, we're not defending cruelty. We're not. We are simply giving off what happened or some things that I was aware of what happened. There's some other things that are going on. It's not defending, it's just talking about what's going on. Not saying it's right. I'm just saying this is what happened. Yeah, according to the Bible. And you know what? If this means I go out more educated than what I did going in, that's great. I've got more things. I still have to work on my faith.
Well, and the question would be, and I guess the question would be, because I'm going in and reading, do you know what Elijah did with the mantle when he grabbed it?
What did he do, sir? I know he struck the water at one point.
Double checking some. So yeah, he struck the river Jordan with the mantle, right? And then the water divided and he crossed. It just says that he inherited. So we don't hear any more about the mantle after that. We don't know. There's nothing that says that he put it on and wore it. It just says that because Elijah didn't give it to him. Remember, Elijah never gave it to him. Elijah went up in the chariot wearing it still, and it fell off. And then Elijah grabs it and he strikes the river Jordan with it, and it parts so he could cross. But we don't know what happens after that. So we don't know if so it says Elijah took the cloak, rolled it up, and struck the water with it. So it's a possibility that he was carrying it with him, but there's nothing that says he was wearing it, right? So the first thing he did is rolled it up. So we don't even know if he was wearing it. But it still stands, though, that we have kids who are being mauled by 2 bears, in which Elijah could have been like, hey, just leave me alone, or Elijah could have just kept walking. But Elijah, instead of doing that, Elijah felt the need to curse them, so the Lord sent the bears. And we know this was the will of the Lord because in Deuteronomy 18, it states that whenever a prophet speaks in the name of the Lord and it is not something that the Lord wants to happen, it won't come true. And in fact, because the prophet spoke something that is not the will of the Lord, the prophet will be unalived.
Fair enough.
Fair. Yeah.
So, but you got anything else?
Honestly, you've given me a lot to look more into. So, I mean, there's a chance you might see me again in the future with more information.
Hey, not a problem. You've been super respectful, and I appreciate it.
I know there are a lot of other people who also want to hop on. So I'm going to go ahead and go. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening to me and keeping it really respectful as well.
Yep.
A lot of people don't want to hear this, and your background allows for it, for ample knowledge.
Yep. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for coming up. And let's see here. We're gonna. Okay, I'm gonna bring up. We still good, Hanji and Ghost?
Yeah, we're still good. It's just the apologetics were fucking insane.
Yeah,
You know what though? At least they were willing to listen. They were willing to listen. And once I made a point, they didn't really. They tried to push back against it, but I think once they're like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. You're right. So I have time for one more debate. Let's bring up this last guest on TikTok. This will be the last debate. So for those that are waiting in Video Ninja, I will be back live tomorrow. I might run this background. I might run a different one. And this one, I am going to let Ghost take it.
Oh. Not me over here considering being like, I'm tired.
Hanji, you're going to take this away. Go.
I think he's going to take his stuff away. He's not
Yeah,
even loading.
he's not loading in.
He is
Folded like a lawn chair, scrambled like an omelet.
EJ Truck.
Run.
Real quick, so this is how I've been feeling with these debates tonight. How I've been feeling, we've had a good crowd on YouTube. Everybody, even if you don't agree, I've kept above 70 watchers on YouTube. And I really appreciate each of you that are here. I've been over 100 for the most part on TikTok. I appreciate each and every one of you. So but I'm not seeing anybody in TikTok. So we'll bring up one more on Video Ninja, I guess. And how bad's that echo, Ghost and Hanji?
It's livable. I mean, at least I can hear the conversation. But I'm actually going to drop down. Thank you so much for having me up. I have to go to sleep. I've got to take kids to school in the morning.
I felt that, but I'm gonna duke it out. But thank you for being here.
Duke it out for me, Hanji. Thank you so much.
I got you.
See y'all later.
See you soon.
Good night. Thanks for coming up. Hey, hop over to YouTube real quick. Make yourself known so we can get some people subscribing to you over there. All right. We will bring up AP. Let me go ahead. I gotta get over here and do some mutes real quick so we don't get the mass echoes, and we should be good. AP, thank you so much for waiting patiently. I've been seeing your comments. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, let me turn you up just a little bit. And how old are you?
I'm 36.
All right, and are you a Christian?
I am.
And why is God a sick fuck?
If he is what you say he is, don't you think you have to be afraid of him?
No,
Don't
because
you think that
I
you
don't
have
believe
to
in
be
him.
running to him instead of running from him?
I'm an atheist. I don't
No?
believe in him.
Well, you do because you're here and you're talking to Christians, obviously.
Yeah, I can read a book
Look
like
what
Harry Potter.
Jonah,
and-
have
hold
you
on,
read?
Hold on. So I'm going to mute you real quick. So the only things that get you muted on my live is when I'm talking and you're trying to overtalk me, or two, if I ask you a question and you just completely dodge it. So I'm going to unmute you. So I can read a book like Harry Potter. You can read a book like Harry Potter. If you've read Harry Potter, you and I can agree that Voldemort is pretty disgusting. But that doesn't mean either of us believe Voldemort exists. But we can agree that as he's written, he's disgusting, correct?
But that's just a book. It doesn't have any authority, right? It's not a law.
Well, the Bible doesn't have authority either. I don't believe so. You believe so, but I don't.
It does because it's the word of God. It's the law that God
Well,
gave.
to you maybe,
It
but
doesn't,
to me it's just mythology. To me, it's
even if it's
nothing more than Harry
mythology to
Potter.
you, even if it's mythology to you, it doesn't make you right.
Oh,
And
it
doesn't
does
make,
though, and the
and it
reason why
doesn't
is I can
make
give you an
Bible
argument.
what you're saying.
Well, here's
I
my
wanted
question.
to read for you.
Well, you're not going to preach. If you're just up here to preach, I'll just kick you. We're here to talk about God being a sick fuck. So my question
Okay,
is...
so if he is a sick, as you say, well, he is a monster, and he's going to destroy you in hell if you don't repent.
Well, no, he doesn't
Because,
exist.
well,
I'm not
look,
worried about hell.
no, that's the thing you don't know, right?
Well, what
And
about
we
the
know
Quran?
because we read his
What
book.
if the Quran? Hold on. What if the Quran is true? What if it turns out that the Quran is true, and Islamic hell is far worse than Christianity's hell? What if because you're not worshiping Allah and that holy book, the Quran? What if you end up in hell? Go ahead, answer.
Well, we know that it's not true because we believe what the Bible says and we believe what the God says. And when God says something, it actually comes true. And it was proven over time. It does. If you read the Old Testament, all the prophecies that God said, it came exactly to fulfillment.
Name one.
Messiah, for example.
Name one of the messianic prophecies.
Destruction of that's a fact. Destruction of the first temple.
Hold on. So hold on. The destructions of the temple is assuming, it's presupposing that the Gospels were written before the destruction of the temple, but we do know that through stylometric analysis, through data science, we do know that the Gospels were written in the mid-2nd century, after the destruction of the temple. So these are books that are being written to appear to have been written in the past, but they're really written after the fact. We know that through data science.
Well, we know that Israel was scattered because of their sin, as the book of Deuteronomy states. We know that it was predicted by God.
Israel got scattered
It was
because hold on a second. Again, when I'm talking and you make a point, don't gish gallop, make a point, let me refute it. So it is the case that Israel got scattered because Rome was cruel to them and they didn't want Roman rule, and they went under three rebellions against Rome, and unfortunately the Jewish people lost, and Emperor Hadrian, decided he was done with it and laid waste to Judea. That's why they were scattered.
because that's the prediction of God. He said, you went away from me. You were disobedient to the law. You were doing a lot of very bad things. They were sacrificing their own children. They were worshiping idols.
Oh, do you
and
have
they were
evidence that
doing
the Israelites during the
things.
hold on. Listen, every time you sit there and make a false claim, I'm going to mute you and we're going to correct it. Are you saying that during the time of Jesus, the Jewish people were sacrificing their children?
That you cannot deny the destruction of first temple, second temple. You cannot deny the fact that they were scattered, because it's written in their law in the book of Deuteronomy.
Hold on. I don't care what Deuteronomy says, right? Are you saying, and I need you to show me evidence, can you show me evidence that anywhere within the prior 400 years that they were sacrificing children, that the Jewish people were sacrificing children? Go ahead, find me that source.
Well, you have to read First, Second Kings, and First,
Yeah, do you know
Second Samuel.
when was first? Hold on, when were these written?
You have to read Jeremiah.
Hold on,
You have to
listen.
read
You're not answering my
Isaiah.
question. Listen, when were these written?
They were written prior Christ.
Yeah, were these written before the Maccabean revolt?
Well, it doesn't matter. The fact that it happened and came to be true, you cannot deny. This is the fact.
No, you made a claim that the Jews were sacrificing children, right? Which is why they were scattered, right? And I'm saying you just need to show that there's evidence of this happening within 300 to 400 years before Hadrian wiped them out. Can you show me that evidence?
Well, you have to read. I told you the evidence is.
No. I don't care what the
Anybody can
scripture
read
says.
it. Listen, it's right now 2 a.m. Right now is at 2 a.m. All you're trying to do is just to, listen. You're not even listening to what we are telling you.
No, I am
This is
listening.
a
You're
fact.
making claims.
You can.
No, you're making claims and you can't back it up. You made an anti-Semitic claim. You made an anti-Semitic claim that you can't back up. So if you can back it up, back it up.
Israel gave law to Jewish people, and he said, if you're going to be obedient, you're going to be prosperous, like you're going to be the best in the world. But if you're going to be disobedient, accountable.
All right, so are you ready to listen?
Are
I
you
don't
ready
think you're
to listen?
listening.
I don't
No,
think
you're
you
not
believe
listening.
the truth. I don't think you believe
It's not
the
the
truth.
truth. It's not the
That's
truth.
the truth.
Is it supposed to be stupid?
And
So
we can actually know the future of Israel people, because the Bible tells
Have you been talking the entire time you've been muted? You realize I've had you muted.
Well, it's because you're
And
rude.
you should
and,
know
and
this
very
because it puts it across your screen. You get this big thing across your screen saying you've been muted. I bet she's still talking.
She's 1,000% still talking.
And I'm telling you that the true facts. Where I am, I don't have to be like.
I have deafened her. I'm just going to keep muting and unmuting her, and we'll see if there's ever a pause.
For Christ. That's a fact. That's a historic fact. Nobody. Because you guys have rejected your Messiah. Astray. They gave you the false rules. You were following the open heart and mind. That's why God has scattered the Israelites to their enemies.
She still doesn't
Because-
realize she's. I keep muting her. This one is being clipped.
Following false teachers. This is what's going to happen to them, and it's been happening to them forever. It's like not even the first time they were scattered around the world. But after Christ descended, it was the last time, and now they're gathered again because there's going to be 13. And if you want to be ignorant, you can be ignorant. It's okay. But we are here to proclaim the truth and to stand up for the truth because we know the truth. And we know the future of Israel. And you have written the Bible. But for blind and ignorant, don't you understand it? And you're just trying to be popular and smart like everybody else, like the stupid people.
Holy shit! Her pastor should get her to shut her trap.
Listen, here's what I'm gonna read. I'm gonna read one verse to you, and I'm done. You know that Prophet Jonah said he wanted the. Jonah was a Hebrew. He was a Jewish prophet. Okay? And
She still doesn't know what's going on. And she does get a notice. And she gets a notice every time that she's been muted.
doing evil things in my eyes. And Jonah didn't even want it to go because he wished them.
So she's stupid.
And he was obedient for the second time. And this is what he said after God actually did not destroy Nineveh. The animals, oh goodness, read the story. This is what he said. And he prayed to the Lord and said, "Oh Lord, is not that what I said when I was yet in my country? That is why I made haste to flee to Tarshish."
I don't know how she doesn't realize, because it gives her a big notification. The director has muted you.
This is who God is.
Are you done? Are you done?
You're an idiot by doing that. You're an idiot.
You do realize that this is on YouTube for your
Yeah,
posterity
exactly.
to see.
This is on YouTube, and you're an idiot on YouTube.
I'm not the one who's been spending like the last 10 minutes yapping as I've been muting you and playing sound effects, and you get a big notification across, and you get a big notification across your screen saying the director muted you.
Rude and ignorant.
Hey, I have a question. Are you married?
And disrespectful, by the way, too. And you know what?
Are you
God
married?
is going to be just by destroying you.
Hold
He's
on.
gonna
Are
destroy
you married?
Are you married? Well, I'm not going to tell you are to know that.
I just want to know, like, does your husband still have ears, or have they been yapped off?
My husband is Jewish.
I don't think he'd be Jewish with the anti-Semitic rhetoric you've been saying.
He is pure Jewish. His mother is a Jew, and his grandmother is a Jew. She was in Israel, in Tel Aviv, My husband is a Jew, and I love him, and he loves me too.
Oh,
And
does he know you're
we
an
both believe in
anti-Semite?
Christ.
Does
We
he know you're
both
an
believe in
anti-Semite?
Christ. I'm not an anti-Semite. Absolutely not. Zero.
You
I
are.
love Jewish people. No. What Rabbi
You
said
love
when I
Jewish
was in
people. You
synagogue.
literally started off the live saying we sacrifice children, which is why we
No,
got
it
kicked
was,
out of
well, it was
Israel.
before. It was before. It was, yes, it was before. And it wasn't just once, it was many times. You have to read the.
While we're in here, Amadeus, if you're not following him, give them a follow. They are an awesome creator. I've been following them for some time. Give them a follow.
I'm not following anybody. I'm just here to tell you that
Oh no,
you
I'm
guys
talking to
are
my chat. I
ignorant.
keep muting you. Because I'm clipping this.
Well, that doesn't matter, really. I am here to tell you the truth. The truth that God is
Hey,
love.
hold on. There is somebody that I want you to talk to about this. I actually have somebody that I think would actually love to hear this scripture. Do you know who that is?
Sure. What scripture? I'll try to open it.
Oh, I couldn't anymore. I couldn't, chat. I apologize.
It was insufferable. But you know what? I'm glad that you are gonna clip that because once her husband sees her true colors, I smell a divorce.
Yep. But anyways, with that said, Dagda, we have the creator that is sometimes known as Dagda in the chat right now. Give Dagda a follow if you're not already. And in case it was missed, the person that I am a firm believer in is somebody that you all know. The person that I
Say his name and he appears. I believe in Joe Hendry. I believe in Joe Hendry. His love.
Jaron Hendry. Yes, so that is something that I want to see. A Jaron Hendry backup. If we could get a Jaron Hendry backup, that would be hilarious. Hilarious. Anyways, let me double check, make sure I'm not missing any super chats. She came back in. She came back in thinking I'm gonna talk to her. Let me double check, see if I'm missing any super chats. All right, so we got another one from Absurdus Ichthyus for $2. Serious spam. If you need another mod, I volunteer. Absurdus, leave a note on YouTube, and I will definitely mod you. Leave a note, and I'll give you a mod. And if you're not following Pax Under Construction, give him a follow as well. Give Pax a follow as well. That would be awesome as well. And with that said, Hanji, it's doing the tin can thing with you again. I'm glad it did it at the end of the live, though. But go ahead and leave any... Oh, nope, never mind. I can hear you again. It didn't do it. I thought it was.
It fixed itself.
Hold on. AP over on YouTube, he couldn't endure the truth. He kicks everyone out whom he cannot overtalk. Who? AP. You needed to blow bubbles and come up for air. You needed to follow them bubbles up. You were diving deeper and deeper into the abyss. You're about to drown. Anyways, Hanji, so real quick, some shout out, some creators that I want you to follow if you're on TikTok. I don't know if they're on YouTube, but I want you to definitely follow Dark Knight. Give Dark Knight a follow. I want you to give Amadeus Almighty a follow. And Amadeus, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that, but give Amadeus a follow. We're going to go ahead and Pax Under Construction. Let's give Pax a follow. Give Dagda a follow. We are also going to go follow. Seeing if we got any other creators that are in here. Give Shadow Boss a follow. Shadow Boss, I don't know if Shadow hosts their own lives, but they're in lives all the time. So give Shadow Boss a follow. And give Hanji, give the one and only Hanji a follow.
Yeah.
And then with that said, we're going to go ahead and drop Hanji. We're going to go ahead and end. Oop, that's not the one I wanted. We're going to go ahead and end the live. And I will see all of you tomorrow.
Plug in, log on.